To order on this 8th day of August 2023. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing and join us in a brief moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers all the men and women of our armed services who bravely defend our freedoms at home and abroad each day. Let's pause for a moment in their honor. Thank you. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Present.
Councilman Martell.
Present.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Schivoni.
Present.
Okay. So let's get started. Thank you all for coming. If you're planning on speaking at either public portion or at one of the public hearings, please fill out a card, a speaker's card out in the hall, and we'll take those in the order we receive them. All right, a couple other items before we get to public hearings. First, there's a few resolutions that are being considered to be added to the agenda as walk-ons. There's resolution 43978, which is a consent to proceed with application for additional antennas of new singular at 340 Great Hill Road in North Sea. There's 43989, authorizes the supervisor to execute agreement with Premier Mechanical Services to replace AC unit and furnace at Waste Management Facility, office located at 1370 Majors Path in Southampton. 43991 is our 15th warrant, and 43992 is a notice of public hearing to consider the lease of town land for the purpose and design, construction, and management of wireless communication structures. So I'll make a motion to walk those four on.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Any discussion? This requires 4 out of 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we'll take those up later on. Next item of business, I'd like to make a motion to approve our minutes from the July 25th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schivoni. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask our town clerk, Cindy Schirmeyer, to read the communications.
The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, letter concerning National Flood Insurance Program requirements, and notification of August 9th webinar, What to Do After a Flood. New York State Department of Public Service, notice of virtual public statement hearings regarding National Grid's KEDNY and KEDLI rate cases. Town of Riverhead public hearing notice, New York State liquor license 30-day advance notice to local municipalities from the listed applicants. Emails, letters, and land use applications have been received regarding the following: blocked road sign on Corwith Avenue, Bridgehampton, for-profit hunting on town land, Hampton Bays downtown pattern book, noise disturbance at 187 Dune Road, Bridgehampton, planning board matter of proposed firehouse station, watermill, proposed lithium battery storage systems and moratorium. Also have received zoning board of appeals applications from 2 locations, 15 Whippoorwill Lane, East Quogue, and 873 Bridgehampton, Sag Harbor Turnpike in Bridgehampton. Bid and request for proposals were received for the following printing of forms for fire prevention on July 26th, and the town comptroller filed a July 2023 monthly financial report. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Okay, we do have 2 public hearings scheduled, and then we have public portion. At the public portion, you can speak about anything you want. That will happen, though, after these 2 public hearings. One of the public hearings I expect to be fairly lengthy. I have some 30 cards. So let me see first, though, is there anyone here who's planning on speaking at what is right now public hearing number 1 on the trail easement? Is there anybody speaking on that for Bidewee? Okay. Okay, because what I'd like to do is take them in reverse order and take the second public hearing first, and, which is on the battery energy storage moratorium. Now, this will be a hybrid meeting. So there are people besides the 30 cards I have here, there's going to be people who want to be heard as well who are watching online from remote locations. I'll take the cards in the order that I received them, but then we'll go to our online viewing audience afterwards. And we afford speakers 3 minutes. We ask you to keep it to 3 minutes. If everybody takes 3 minutes, that's an hour and a half here, plus whatever we have there. Okay, so I'm going to call public hearing number 2 first. Jim, I don't have to do anything procedurally to take them out of order, right?
No.
Okay, because they're both
Just like
listed
you
for the
said.
exact same time. So, Madam Clerk, would you read the second public hearing notice, which will become public hearing 1?
It will remain public hearing number 2, but we're going to read it first.
Okay, that's fine.
So, public hearing number 2 to enact a new chapter 314 entitled Moratorium on Battery Energy Storage System.
Okay, so Janice, did you want to say, Janice Shearer, head of our Town Planning and Development Administration Department. And I know this is why most of you are here. The town board is considering enacting a 6-month pause on receiving applications and processing applications related to battery energy storage so that we could take a close look at public safety, health and safety concerns. And with that, Janice,
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board. Yes, this is a different resolution because the initial hearing was for a 3-month moratorium. This is for a 6-month moratorium, and it does exclude the applications that were pending.
the first
which
one
was only-
excluded. This one includes.
I mean, the other one excluded it, meaning it could move forward.
Right.
This one takes out that exclusion clause so that it would not continue. And so that's the difference here. I just wanted to report that we did go to Suffolk County Planning Commission, who enacted a resolution allowing it. As you know, you need that in order to move forward. And you also have comments from the planning board, also in support of the moratorium. And just in terms of, procedurally, I think that, it's important to get all the community input that we have gotten about the safety of the batteries. And in no time, is that a bad thing? And I think we all agree that what we were hearing from NYSERDA, that these batteries were safe and great and going to help us in this climate crisis. This is why we said, great, we're going to be able to put them and communities will be able to scale them in context with where they are and understand how that will be, helping us store renewable energy, lower our dependency on fossil fuels, and create, a more resilient grid. And these were the objectives that we set out for. So we didn't set out to put anybody in harm's way. And so now we're finding out that there's all these issues across the state, and the state, our governor has enacted a panel of experts with NYSERDA who gave us the model code in the first place when we enacted it. The Energy and Research Development Authority are the ones that, created the model code. We used it to enact it. I understand the issues about it being too much, too near people's homes, et cetera. So we're going to, now this whole panel has been enacted to understand the safety of this, which is a good thing also. We don't enact rules without understanding safety. But just knowing that the intention was to have renewable energy and have coastal resiliency. And that's one of our biggest reasons why we did this.
So the purpose of the 6 months is to allow the town to analyze, with the help of technical professionals, the very concerns the public has raised about groundwater impacts, toxic gases, fire suppression, explosions, whatever the, thermal runaway fires, and then to look at our code and see if our code as written is sufficient to protect the public, and if not, modify that code in a way that answers to the best of our abilities those questions.
Right, and
Right.
so the moratorium is on those standards and guidelines out, the criteria that were enacted to say you can cite a battery energy storage facility here if, special exception means if you meet the standards. So what is, the question here is, are those standards good enough to protect everyone? What do we need to do to make sure that they're cited appropriately? And just to make the other point that, you know, we all, every community is, I was thinking about it and, you know,
Well, just, talk
just
to
in
us.
terms of, sorry, I have to address the board when I speak. So, if you think about life and the life of a cell, I mean, you have to have a powering component, like a mitochondria. Every community needs to power itself to some degree, just like we also need to process our waste.
Please,
This
please.
is how we live life. So we have to account for where is the power coming from? Where is it gonna go? And that's what we're planning for. We're not planning to the catastrophe of, you know, hurting anyone. We're just trying to plan for where should we put these? Should a catastrophe strike, what are you gonna do? And that is part of this conversation
no-
and larger debate.
There's no
So,
question that consumption of energy has increased and that people aren't turning off their air conditioners and their cell phones and their TV sets. So power's gonna come from somewhere.
and
we have a lot of-
48% of that power is used by residential. The power we currently
Well, I was gonna say
have.
is there are lots of choices
Right.
in terms of how the town can plan to meet its energy demands.
And that's what we're
Yeah,
doing.
all right,
And that is
exactly.
the state's
And I
goals
think
as
that,
well.
You know, with this moratorium, assuming it's going to be enacted, it's important that we get true technical expertise from individuals who have, you know, no skin in the game, other than to advise us based on the science and experiences out there, so that the town board, who's ever sitting in these chairs after 6 months, are able to make an informed decision as to what the right code should be, so.
That's right. And to that end, I also wanted to enter into the record some peer review literature about all the different types of batteries that are available today. And just so that they're on record, and these are the kinds of things that should be analyzed, and other people have done research and may want to add their information into the record. But the truth is that, you know, we are in need of renewable energy, and we are in need to, you know, figure out what we're going to do about our greenhouse gas carbon
Right,
emissions.
well, the town has adopted the sustainability plan that you've worked on, I know, Sustainability 400, and we have adopted goals for moving toward renewable energy, and I know that's the genesis for some of the planning efforts that have happened in the past that have brought us to this point, the desire to address climate change.
And it's not just the
impacts-
desire, it's this, you know, there is a state law, New York Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, and we're actually required, we are creatures of the state, and we
Okay.
do have to look at this.
All
And I'm
right.
sorry, like, that is true.
No, that's fine, Janice, and I've asked the audience, you're gonna have hours to speak to us, so it's, so would,
I'm not the public court here.
if you can't comport yourself in an appropriate manner.
You can laugh, but it's true.
Asking you not to
That's not true,
interrupt.
Mary.
Whoever is
Thank you. No,
interrupting,
it isn't.
I'm not sure who that was,
No, it
but
isn't.
you're just delaying the meeting further, so.
Anyway, I just wanted to also address that there were some concerns about the fact that there is in a moratorium code an appeal process where someone can come in and request an appeal to be relieved of the moratorium. And every moratorium code that has been enacted since I've been here for 20 years has a provision such as that, because that is the inherent relief valve that makes that zoning
I
valid.
understand
Absolutely.
And so we have to have that.
Yeah, if you didn't have that language, the moratorium would be declared invalid from the courts.
That's right, because of the fact that you have, it's actually your right to make an application
it's a-
to the town. And so it's protected under
Right, the
First
courts
Amendment.
recognize that a moratorium is a fairly extreme land use act by the board, so you have to have that relief valve and contained in our provision here under
Again, can
314-6.
people turn their cell phone ringers off so we're not
It's
interrupting?
considered a police power,
That's
or
right.
So-
required by the state to have.
Any other questions? I want to get to the public. Do we have any other questions for Janice? All right.
Well, a comment that it's required by the state to have that relief.
Yeah.
for the
That's
appeals
correct.
process
We
and
have
by
to
state
have
law.
the, in any legislation that
Can we just stop
restricts
for a
people.
second? Can you get this, please, cell phone ringers off. All right, thank you.
The legislation that creates zoning or any kind of restriction on someone also must have the relief provision in it, so that someone has the opportunity to plead their special case if there is one. If there is not one, then there isn't one. And just also, I wanted to just make the other general point that the SECRA that was done to enact the battery storage code, we do have case law that says, you know, that the SECRA does not, it is not that we have to scrutinize every possible thing when you enact regulations. The scrutiny occurs at the time that someone makes an application and is the basis and the merits of that application in the context of where it is. So I know there's criticism related to the enactment and the SECRA review, and I do have that case law as well. That says the SECRA is done at the time that is actual, we do SECRA on a macro scale, and then when actual applications come in, they hold it against the standards and the particular context and the environmental considerations, and then the board of the planning board would do the SECRA for that particular thing. So,
All right, thank you, Judge.
thank you.
Thank
Can we
you.
have your name and where you live? Do you live in the area?
My name is Janice
not
Scherer,
relevant.
and I'm the
She's-
Town Planning and Development Administrator.
Janice is a town employee, she's the department head.
Does she live in Hampton Bays?
She is a professional advisor to the town. You gotta ask every
She's all for something
department head, you gotta ask whether they live in the town, that's not a requirement, so,
Not a-
okay? Thank you. All right, so, and please, if you're in the audience, you'll have your chance to speak. There's no question about it, but please do not interrupt the meeting. All right, so every speaker will be afforded 3 minutes. We will let you know when you're down to your last 30 seconds. We ask that you wrap up and don't exceed your 3 minutes. All right, Keith Archer, and I'm gonna say who's on deck, Philip Metzger. And the reason why I'm telling you who's on deck is so that we don't have to wait for people to move through the aisle to get to the podium. Okay, please, quiet.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, members of the town board. My name is Keith Archer of Harris, Bloom and Archer, 445 Broad Hollow Road in Melville. And we represent Canal Southampton Battery Storage, which is the applicant in the presently pending application before the planning board for the battery storage facility at 24 North Road, Hampton Bays. I'm submitting a letter. Actually, it was emailed in, I believe, earlier, but let me submit the original. On behalf of our client, objecting to the proposed town board moratorium and requesting that in the event the moratorium is adopted, that our client be exempt from the moratorium, should it be imposed, as was recommended by the Suffolk County Planning Commission in its August 2nd, 2023 resolution. And I'm going to let the letter speak for itself, Mr. Supervisor. So let me just submit it, although it's formally been submitted. And that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so Philip Metzger is next, followed by Bill Muir.
The more I investigate the background of the Best matter, the more surprised I am. If responsible persons were looking into stationing a Best facility on the North Road location in Hampton Bays, wouldn't they have seriously considered the contingency of something going wrong? That is, the health and safety of the citizens of Southampton, to wit, evacuation of residents, firefighting, impact on the local environment, security of the facility, air quality, noise pollution. None of these was adequately addressed. The town board was told that all of these were sufficiently accounted for in the application for the proposed facility. Board members were told that the effects of the facility were benign. That was incorrect. For this reason, the application should have been denied. The most important highway corridor within the town of Southampton, in terms of traffic volumes, is the one formed by Sunrise Highway, Route 27, North Road, and Montauk Highway. The Sunrise Highway corridor is the backbone of the highway network in Southampton town, facilitating east-west traffic flow through the entire length of the town. Both of these statements come from the town documents on traffic. The proposed facility is precisely at that traffic choke point. The facility is also within feet of the Long Island Railroad tracks. Should there be a BESS accident, the east end of the South Fork would be totally cut off. Evacuation would be impossible if an accident produced dangerous air quality, or even worse, a runaway conflagration. For this reason, the application should have been denied. In the event of a fire, there is not sufficient water pressure to douse the flames. It would require pumping water from the canal, salt water, which could exacerbate the chemical reaction. The runoff, laden with chemicals, would flow into the canal and from there into the Peconic and Shinnecock Bays. Chemicals in the air, particularly toxic cobalt, would seriously impact the health of vulnerable residents and could even kill pets and wildlife who are more vulnerable because of their size.
30 seconds.
For this reason, the application should have been denied. The issue of site security has been virtually neglected during the application process. The very real need to secure the facility from vandals and terrorists has not been addressed. For this reason, the application should have been denied. The noise of such facilities produced was given short shrift. No definitive information addressed the noise level. For this reason, the application
minutes.
should have been denied.
Sir, you'll have to wrap up.
But not only was the application approved, it was fast-tracked, and here we are today, your constituents wiser, but behind the eight ball. I respectfully note that as a democratically elected board, you owe the owner and the developer nothing. You, however, owe it to your constituents to protect their health and safety. Stop the project. It belongs elsewhere. End the madness. Deny the application.
Bill, you're right there, and then Bill, you were followed by Joyce Metzger.
Since a picture is worth 1,000 words, I'm going to try to stretch my presentation with this picture. This is the lime facility which recently burst into flames, but as you'll notice, it's in gorgeous isolation up at this point. It's not as if it would have burst into flame where the BESS facility is proposed. Here you have the fire officers are over 100 feet away, and they're spraying it down with water. Here you have broad fields for this toxic material to go away. That's not the situation that we would have if BESS were approved. Now, the idea that a facility is going to burst into flames was originally, it was looked at as we were hysterics when we arrived. But how about the Warwick facility? It had 2 sites. Both sites were hit by lightning on the same day after it was installed for a month. If we had come in and told you on the first day that we made our presentations, what do you think the chances are you can get hit by lightning twice in one day? All of this we would have been laughed out of the building. In fact, that's what happens with these things. It's not a probability, it's a possibility. Well, in this case, here's the suspected villain. It's this little guy in the hands of one of the inspectors. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of these batteries which are in there. Any one of them decides it's going to have a bad day and burn off, and you're going to have one of those right in your face. So this is not as if it's news. Everyone is looking at, oh wow, 3, 4 of them went up in New York State all at once. Well, in fact, there was something called the BESS Failure Event Database. It's not something that showed up last week. This has been around for years, and it keeps recording about every month. You get 2 of these, so that when it was urged that you put 100,000 watts into rather 100 million watts into a residential community, this was already news that was known.
30 seconds.
Here is FEMA in 2019, and FEMA is telling us, watch out, folks, these things blow up. Now, how in good conscience could anyone come in and say, oh, by the way, let's put this gigantic, bigger than any of these other ones that we're talking about, let's put that in a residential community. These things, we're not talking against clean energy, we're talking about shoehorning it into a residential area. Here, for example, is a fire at a battery storage site in its 5th day, and it is burning and it is sending smoke and toxic chemicals over the community. Here is the one that's up at Warwick, and they're saying air quality samples have revealed the presence of dozens of different toxins are all in there. These are not probabilities, they're possibilities, and that's what we have to plan for. Folks, this is where these things belong. They belong in remote areas, they belong in industrial areas.
Bill, you have to wrap up.
I'm wrapping up right now. Very quickly, it has been suggested that maybe we just downsize this. Maybe we get a secret sauce and it's a different kind of chemical that we're dealing with. Maybe we get a new safety device
4
that's
minutes.
in there. That is best in an best in a residential community is a terrible idea. A reduced size BESS in a residential area is also a terrible idea. Every one of these things that I've cited is much smaller than the one that had been proposed. A small, terrible idea is still a terrible idea. Thank you very much.
Joyce Metzger, followed by Patricia McKee.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Schneiderman, Town Board members. My name is Joyce Metzger. I live in Hampton Bays in the North Road neighborhood. I have a question. Why would the town of Southampton allow a BESS to be placed in a residential area that is also a heavily utilized recreational area? You have heard and will hear from the others that a BESS is inappropriate, in our opinion, for a residential neighborhood such as ours. I would point out that not only is our neighborhood residential, it's a popular and highly utilized recreational area which draws hundreds of people to its beach, canal, and hospitality attractions. During the warm weather, Mashut Beach County Park, which is less than half a mile from the proposed BESS site on North Road, is filled with families spending the day swimming, kayaking, paddleboarding, and enjoying the 1,000 feet of beach on the Peconic Bay. The crowd of people balloons on the weekend. The 350 parking spots fill quickly and close down the parking lot, driving people, that's not a pun, to park on the adjacent residential streets. During the nights on Wednesdays and weekends, when there is live music, classic car shows, and private events, the crowds can number in the hundreds. The local roads providing access to the park are 2-lane and shoulderless. Any event occurring at the BESS site would prove catastrophic for the people who might be trapped in that area. People come to our neighborhood to enjoy the Shinnecock Canal. On any given day, you will find people fishing, crabbing, or just putting out beach chairs to sit along the canal, catch a few rays, and watch the boats. Tourists stay in the lovely motels and inns adjacent to the proposed BESS site, such as the Hampton Maid, the Canoe Place Inn and Cottages, and the Ocean View Terrace Inn. Tourists and local enjoy the fine dining in many restaurants adjacent to the BESS site, including Edgewater, Cowfish, Out of the Blue, the Canal Cafe, Rare, Tiki Joe's, and the Good Ground Tavern. There is even a nightclub, Dream, which draws hundreds of people on Wednesdays and Saturdays. The quiet, charming residential streets around the BESS are alluring to joggers, strollers, and dog walkers. Can you imagine a tourist asking the desk clerk at the Hampton Maid where to jog and being told, go out the front, turn right, or go around the bend, and when you come to the BESS, make a left down any one of the charming streets that will take you to the bay. Boaters populate the several marinas, including Shinnecock, Modern Yachts, Mariners Cove, Spellman's, and Shagwong, all of which are adjacent to the best site.
30 seconds.
Recreational areas for tourists and locals are essential to the town's economy and health. Supervisor Schneiderman has on several occasions said that Hampton Bays should be a tourist destination. Well, Hampton Bays is a tourist destination and must be protected. It's your job to do so. Why then would you support the construction of a BES in this area? It makes little sense. Battery energy storage systems are not appropriate for residential areas. They belong in industrial areas away from people and homes.
3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Pat, you are followed by Ed Gillespie.
My name is Patricia McKee. I live in Hampton Bays on Cedar Point Road. I'm very privileged today, though I'm not speaking for myself. I have a message from the Shinnecock tribe, from Siobhan Smith, who is the director of the Environmental Office for the Shinnecock tribe. The Shinnecock Indian Nation has sustained itself along the shores of the Shinnecock and Peconic Bays for generations. The waters provide a source of spiritual renewal, sustenance, and cleansing. We work hard to protect the waters and ensure that generations to come will be able to live in harmony with the waters, as we have been blessed to do. Canoe Place, the canal, has been part of our existence well before the period of contact. It is how our ancestors moved from Shinnecock Bay to the Peconic by carrying their canoes over the small land. These lands and waters know us very well, and we know them. We have rallied against the extensive and disruptive development that has taken place, literally at the water's edge. We continue to warn our neighbors that we must take care of our natural world or suffer the consequences of its destruction. We all need to collectively assess our lifestyles and adjust accordingly. Yes, we need new sources of energy and methods to thrive in the world, but we must also make sure that new technologies themselves do not pose additional threats. Change is inevitable, often necessary, but humans tend to leave a footprint that impacts the most vulnerable first. We have a responsibility to care not only for humans, but for the animals, the plants, the trees, the soil, and our life-sustaining water. The lithium battery storage facility does not belong near the canal, nor in any residential area. Thank you.
Okay, so Ed, you are next, followed by Laurie Werner.
Good afternoon. I'm Ed Gillespie. I live on Cedar Point Road, very close proximity to this area. I'd like to read a letter. The canal best case gets curiouser and curiouser. The residents have turned out in force. They have come armed with the fruits of their diligent research into lithium batteries and battery energy storage system installations, into town codes, procedures, into local traffic and noise decibels. They've provided maps showing the error of the town's seeming acceptance of the area as isolated and industrial, when it's not only zoned residential, but it's surrounded by hundreds of homes. And then, unexpectedly to them, they are thrust into the world of politics, condensation, double talk, and intrigue. It has been disillusioning to them as citizens taking a stand against the rigmarole of the town hall structure. And yet throughout, they have forged ahead in their belief that this project is a very big mistake. And this observation has been reinforced by all the lessons they have learned from their investigations, including lessons from experts in the field. And finally, in their innocence, they think logic, reason, and factual evidence will prevail. And at the same time, the town supervisor assures them that he is listening. Soon, they go to a town board meeting and hear members of the town's own sustainability committee who have been prepped by a town consultant paid to rebut their arguments, refer to them as people unable to understand. People who get their information from social media and Wikipedia. And then, at a subsequent special town board meeting, they hear Town Planning and Development Administrator Janice Shearer and Town Council member John Bouvier muse that a lithium battery demonstration might help them understand, or a reduction in their electric bill might change their minds. Then, in a time-worn political tradition of putting people off, the supervisor announces either the formation of an independent committee or hiring a paid third-party independent expert to review the case. And finally, it is discovered that co-chairs of the Sustainability Committee, who apparently is completely wedded to the approval of the Canal BESS application, is also on the planning board charged with impartially reviewing the case. It's hard to keep faith in a system so full of controversial behavior and questionable ethics.
30 seconds.
And yet, the good citizens of Hampton Bays continue to prove the point that this project is wrong, all wrong, on a variety of levels. They acknowledge the need for alternate energy sources at every turn. But as one of them said at a town hall meeting, a bad plan for good reasons is still a bad plan.
3 minutes.
It's a pity others are not as reasonable or honorable. It's a sad lesson for some to learn. Written by Marion Bowden, Hampton Bays. Thank you.
All right, Laura, you are followed by Matt Drosdorf.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lori Werner. I lived year-round in Hampton Bays for 50 years. My same little 700-square-foot house with a lot of land for 47 years. And I leave the fact of people talking about how we do not want this to people that know more about the technology, the mechanisms than I do. My mind does not go that way. It doesn't go toward building things and contracting things and technology. But my mind goes to passion and to fight for what I believe in, and I am furious. Hampton Bays has always been considered, which I loved, the non-Hampton, the un-Hampton. We were always the Hampton where everybody came that were working class members of our community. That's changing, and that's okay. That's not what I'm upset about. I'm upset about the fact that all I have heard in the last 2 years is dump on Hampton Bays, and I am tired of it. The first one was, which got me livid, was the overlay district. I was sitting at the senior center having lunch, and Ray, who left, I wish Ray could hear me, Ray brought over a copy of a report from an outside organization that every single person, well, not everyone, but most everyone sitting on this board signed, saying they were neutralizing our voices. We raised hell. People in Hampton Bays are fed up. The Bel Air Cove Motel. All we've heard, I fought that. We wanted to use community preservation money. All we heard was, well, you know, we have to get rid of it, and the community wanted this 4 years ago. No, we didn't. Look at the letters to the editor and the press, and this is not acceptable. Why is it Hampton Bays that's being considered again? Again, the people here that can speak about all of the technology and the fire, 5 fires since May 31st? Where are they gonna go? I am disgusted with politics, both politics.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, you're followed by Steve Crispinelli.
Okay, thank you, Board. I'm a resident of Hampton Bays, been here for 55 years. The proposed Canal Southampton Best Unit is in a very strategic location, a bottleneck at the narrowest part of the southern fork of Long Island, where east-west roads and Long Island Railroad are in close proximity to one another and to the Best site. The proposed site will house 30 trailers-sized Best units, will be unmanned, remotely monitored. There will be a 4-foot fence around the property, and if a terrorist or lightning struck triggers a runaway lithium fire, the fire department, which is not trained to fight this type of fire, may arrive in 5 minutes. But the nearest hazmat unit, which is qualified to fight this type of fire, is an hour away in Middle Island. Why is this significant? A runway fire starts almost instantly, explosively, releasing toxic gases into the environment and is almost impossible to put out. Underwriter Laboratories Fire Safety Research Institute, Steve Kerber, said his team ran tests on lithium-ion batteries, which took only 15 seconds from the sign of smoke to windows being blown out of the test house. In a traditional fire, he said this would take up to 3 minutes. Large amounts of water are used to contain the lithium battery fire, but the water does not put the fire out. It merely cools the area to stop the reaction. Very often the fire reignites because of a phenomenon called stranded energy. On June 23rd, a little more than a month ago, this exact thing happened in Phoenix, Arizona. 4 EV trucks caught on fire in an industrial area, triggering a large response from hazmat crews from 2 cities, Phoenix and Tempe. 50 hazmat fires were needed to contain the fire. They didn't put it out, it had to burn out itself. It kept restarting. Lithium battery fires have become extremely common. There are 50 or so in the last 2 years. East Hampton battery fire on May 31st shut down the area for half a day. The 2 Warwick fires that we've talked about and the lithium battery trailer fire in Lyme about 2 weeks ago were all much smaller than the 100 megawatt Canal Best installation, yet these fires in remote industrial areas burned for days, caused mass evacuations, poisoned the air, and were difficult to put out. How could we even consider putting a much larger 100 megawatt Best unit in a residential area? A Canal Best lithium fire would require evacuating people from Peconic Bay to Shinnecock Bay, hundreds of homes. How do we evacuate so many people in a short time? Where do we put them? Have we thought this thing through? While little has been done to protect the community, the applicant has done a lot to protect themselves from litigation by constructing a fortress of shell companies. The Delaware Department of State lists Canal Southampton Battery Storage as a foreign limited liability corporation belonging to Naylor USA Storage Inc., part of Naylor Renewables, headquartered in the UK. Naylor Renewables is composed of a joint venture of IFM Ventures, Melbourne, Australia,
30 seconds.
and Trafigura, Singapore. If we're having trouble following this, just wait for a thermal runway and try to sort this all out. I could go on to greater length, but the message is clear. Residential zones are for people, not for 100 megawatt explosive chemical energy storage units. Put Best in an industrial area. And I might add, just in finishing, I mentioned a total of 5 units, all that have gone up in less than 2.5 months. 4 of those 5 are in New York State. 2 of the 4 are new units. We don't need this in a
3
residential
minutes.
area.
Thank you, sir. Steve Crispinelli is next, followed by Peter Governale.
Our board should know the community understands the need for the mitigation of climate change and for clean energy sufficiency. Both are laudable and necessary goals. But we humbly suggest a proper industrial site be investigated for a solution as radical as Best. Pick such a site and don't risk the citizens and voters in a residential gem. Hired experts may look into the following questions during the moratorium. My fellow speakers have, but there are many, many more questions we haven't time to ask. 1, aside from attempting to allay community concerns through education, what do you believe is the main purpose of any moratorium? Will any study be done for the purpose of assessing the risk of a smaller installation already rejected by the community? Will the experts chosen be publicly named, not heretofore used by the board, their credentials publicly shared, and their compensation revealed? Will the affected community's experts participate and their opinions published and circulated? Will different sites be recommended? What other parts of Long Island or Southampton are expected to be served by BESS? What criteria was used in picking this location and rejecting any other? Exclude closeness to a substation. Who determined and what criteria was used to determine the size of this BESS? Is the cost of having a substation very close to BESS offset by transmitting power east of Hampton Bays, where energy consumption is growing and power transmission degradation may occur? What are the trends and projections of power consumption and storage needs in Southampton and outside of Hampton Bays? Has any organization considered or suggested the expansion of the number of BESS units at this site in the future? How will the board and town officials interact with Governor Hochul's interagency fire safety working group? Have the Hampton Bays and Southampton fire and safety officials been consulted about the risks of this BESS? What are their plans in case of fire or an emergency? How do you intend to train and update the Hampton Bays Volunteer Fire Department on the latest BESS fire and explosion fighting techniques? Now let me turn to another aspect of this decision process that got us here. We do not imply anything, but someone once said, trust and verify. Have any contracts been signed, verbal agreements made, money spent, or promised to the owner of the proposed BESS site or to the supplier of the installation by any government or non-government organization or person? Have any arrangements been made to assist anyone involved in making or
30
seconds.
benefit from the decision on the proposed site of BESS before, during, or after the installation? Is the board more concerned, or to use your word, afraid of a lawsuit from the BESS provider or a lawsuit from a community of voters? We concerned citizens and voters of Hampton Bays hope you do no harm. Please do not make us believe what we think.
3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. All right, Peter, you are next, followed by James Dubrowski.
Good afternoon. Peter Governale. I live at 25 Old North Highway on the corner of Madison Avenue and on Old North Highway, which is 1 block south of Mashut Beach and 1 block north of the BESS facility, proposed BESS facility. So let's just keep it simple, okay? We're all human here, okay? We make mistakes. This is a big mistake. That's it, okay? Maybe it wasn't looked at properly, but it's a mistake. I invite you, all of you, to come out and look at the area yourself and see how close it really is to all the things we spoke about, businesses, canal, everything here, okay? It's in the wrong area. We had a major flood on July 16th, okay? We had a major rain, and we went down there, and right at the ramp of the Sunrise Highway and North Road, that whole area where the BESS facility was, it was 3 feet of water. We had the police there guiding traffic through. You couldn't go anywhere else. The water was running off Sunrise Highway into North Road. It's a disaster. It really is. The whole thing is in the wrong locations. It's dangerous. We're all concerned for our health. We're all concerned for our family's well-being. We're concerned for the whole area. My family's had a house there since 1950, okay? So we know a lot of people in the area. We know I have family in the area. I have family who are volunteer firemen, numerous family members there. It's dangerous. It's a mistake. It's turned into a mess. Move it into an industrial area away from people. I'm all for the green energy and saving the environment, but I'm not for putting it in a dangerous location where it can harm people and do just numerous damage to different things. It's in the wrong location. Put it in the right location. We're good to go. Put it here, it's going to be a problem. It's the wrong location. So I encourage you, please move it. It's turning into a mess. You'll save yourself a lot of money with research and development and all these studies. Move it somewhere else. You won't have to go through any of that, and we're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Governale. Next up is James Dubrowski, followed by Bridget Bayer.
Okay, hi, James Dubrowski, Hampton Bays. I live near Mashut Beach, 500 yards from the BESS facility. My family's been there for 60 years. I'd like to first commend the town board for listening to your voters and constituents and enacting this moratorium. Thank you. This is a large community issue, and I'd like to just quickly cover two topics today. First, I just learned that the town has a sustainability committee as going through this process here, and many of us are tired and don't want to hear the sustainability people telling us the NYSERDA regulations on this project here. I also know the town has a terrific Department of Public Safety. The public safety officers are here today controlling the occupancy in this room, but there's no public safety officers here talking about the safety of this project. Why not? We'd like to see that at some point. But anyway, last time I came here, I printed out a couple of maps here, and I have a little bigger copies. And then these two maps come from the Suffolk County Planning Commission. The first map here shows our measurements of how far we are away from this facility here. And I think there's probably 1,000 households within a half a mile of this. Second is the site plan description of what this actually looks like. I can't make heads or tails of this, so I tried to figure it out. I'm just a regular guy that tries to figure things out. So I went on Google Earth, and anybody ever went on Google Earth, it's really cool. I printed this out, and I colored the best site in red. So now what this does is it brings beaches, waterways, houses, and people into the equation of the whole site. So now I want to step further on Google Earth, and you can zoom out a little bit more. The best site is on the top corner of here in red. And then I wanted to compare the size of this facility on a 5-acre thing with 30 tractor trailers to something else in Hampton Bays that we're familiar with. So I colored in the Hampton Bays High School in yellow here. And if you can see this here, you can almost see that the high school is almost as big as Bess. Middle school, Hampton Bays, is definitely bigger than Bess. King Cullen, tiny thing compared to Bess. And how about Macy's? Similar scale, I guess. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but it seems that way to me. I'll be happy to share these things with everybody. But anyway, so it's Bess is bigger than a lot of things, and maybe I'll put a little more perspective here. And then finally, you take the last picture here, you fully zoom out to the whole town of Southampton, and you put a one mile ring around the site there, and you can see the choke point. So let me just get to my note here. So can anyone in their right mind think that this is actually safe here? Can you honestly say that when you see this map here, this doesn't deserve a full environmental review?
3 minutes.
Okay, and then anyway, so while I support your change of heart in this 6-month moratorium, I hope everyone here realizes that the moratorium is only a first baby step. There's massive town-wide community opposition to this, and every aspect of the project, and the residents and the voters of the town will not stop fighting about this until we see the negative declarations reversed and the positive zoning change enacted to prohibit Best facilities anywhere near any residential neighborhood in our town. Thanks for listening.
Right here.
Yeah, you can submit it to the clerk. So
Right here.
Bridget, Mayor, followed by
Right here. Thank you.
Chrissy
That's okay.
Muhlenhausen.
Hi. This is where we live, and he does too. The little cutie pie in the middle. He lives in the Shinnecock Bay, according to the fish guy. He just appeared after 30 years of not being around. But anyway, these pictures were taken by me when I walk my dog. So this is where we live, and it's beautiful. You can agree, I think. Anyway, quoting from the the Best facility does not belong on North Road for numerous environmental impacts. Quoting from the Southampton sustainability element to the comprehensive plan. Wanting to maintain the unique characteristics that define the town of Southampton, specifically its scenic vistas, maritime heritage, agricultural heritage, hamlet centers, and unsurpassed beaches, Southampton wishes to ensure the future of the town, recognizing and respecting individual property rights, as well as the intent to retain and reaffirm our ability to define our own destiny through local jurisdiction. The sustainability plan seeks to do this. In 1970, the town of Southampton developed its comprehensive plan. The plan has been updated in 1999, 2013 with sustainability, and 2016 with the Coastal Resources and Water Protection Plan. In 2017, a resolution establishing energy goals was made. So far, so good. In 2021 and 22, the town lost sight of the mission and issued not one, but two negative declarations, opting to forego a full environmental impact statement and fast-tracking the North Road BES. It seems that neg decks are a dime a dozen and executed in a perfunctory manner. LFPs are deemed to be safer, but Warwick shows that LFPs can catch fire and threaten the health and safety of people living and working nearby. Flammable battery technology, combined with insufficient first responder training and a puzzling choice of site, could have been a recipe for disaster. Warwick officials said that municipalities should take more time to evaluate safety protocols, reevaluate zoning and permitting requirements, properly train emergency responders. On July 28th, Governor Hochul, we all know, announced the creation of the new Interagency Fire Safety Group tasked with ensuring the safety and security of energy storage systems following the multiple fires in New York State, including Suffolk County. According to the Coastal Resources and Water Protection section of the plan, the entire area surrounding the site is a designated water protection boundary, and I quote, "The geographic focus of Southampton's Coastal and Water Protection Plan is primarily the area encompassing the town's coastal waters, waterfront, and associated coastal resources. These resources include fishable, swimmable, and potable waters, beaches, dunes, wetlands, fish and wildlife habitats, scenic landscapes, and historic and cultural resources associated with life along the coast."
3 minutes.
I am now turning it over to Chrissy, who will continue the discussion. Keep your eye on pictures.
All right, thank you. Hold on, Chrissy, before you start, let me just say who's on deck. Mia Millenhausen. All right, so Chrissy Millenhausen first, and then Mia.
Hello. Thanks for listening today. So we're going to continue on with the environmental piece that we did. Shinnecock Bay was once degraded by water quality issues, nitrogen loading, lack of shellfish, and habitat loss. Stony Brook University's restoration and monitoring program, begun in 2012, improved the bay's health dramatically. So Shinnecock Bay is now a positive example of a successful restoration in an era of negative environmental news. Mission Blue designated Shinnecock Bay as a global hotspot, as we've heard before, in June of 2022. Due to community involvement, the variety of species in the bay, and the recreational and commercial opportunities enjoyed there. Several of the wetlands within Shinnecock Bay are recognized by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as priority wetlands under the Federal Emergency Wetlands Resource Act of 1986. So Shinnecock Bay is one of the most important waterfowl wintering areas on Long Island, and Shinnecock Bay is one of the largest estuarine ecosystems in New York State. The Peconic Estuary is a well-mixed estuary located between the North and South Forks, and the estuary and its watershed have been identified as one of the Nature Conservancy's, quote, last great places in the Western Hemisphere. The estuary exhibits a rich mosaic of coastal and underwater habitats, bay scallops, crabs, clams, summer flounders, weakfish, ducks. We can go on and on. Meadows of eelgrass along the edges of the estuary establish one of the most important underwater habitats within the Peconic. The Nature Conservancy aims to conserve the diversity of the plants, fish, and wildlife within the Peconic estuary. The Shinnecock and Peconic Bays are precious resources. In the event of fire and polluting runoff into the canal, which is downhill and roughly 800 feet from the proposed site, will feed into both bays. Gambling with the beauty and pristine nature of our environment and putting our bays and canal at risk is reckless. A series of recent weather events indicates this scenario is entirely possible. The fire at the Warwick Bass plant was deemed to be storm-related. The recent torrential rains we had here in July of 16th of 2023 caused major flooding to the area directly in front of the North Road site. I will hand some pictures in a moment. The flooding poured directly into the canal. We took video footage, it was excellent, but we could not submit the video, so we took some still shots to provide with you today, the very impactful photos. Moving on to air. Lithium iron phosphate batteries, a type of lithium ion battery, are considered less dangerous, but LFPs can and do burn. Burning can be caused by a manufacturing flaw, subsystem failure, electrical problems, and environmental impacts, as in the case of Warwick. Thermal runaway is the uncontrollable self-heating of the battery cell, and the overheating cell then generates flammable and toxic gases and can reach a heat high enough to ignite those gases. The gases that are released from battery energy storage systems are highly flammable and toxic. The type of gas released depends on the battery chemistry. A recent battery fire incident in New York, residents were told to shelter in place until air toxicities were assessed, and in some cases, I think it was a mile, like in the line of fire. But I really like to hand in these photos. I think pictures are worth 1,000 words, and thanks to my daughter helping me with this, we got it done. So these are for you. You guys can
If you
keep
could bring them
this.
over here, please.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. Now, are these for us to keep, or you
Yes.
want these
Oh,
back?
absolutely.
Okay.
And here are some blow-ups, just because I thought that these were really good shots.
Okay.
The last one shows that when we were
Chris, you can just go
Yeah,
back to the
sorry about
microphone
that.
so we can get you in our recording.
So when we took the shots, it was kind of all happenstance. We were on our way somewhere. We got called off because of the weather. We had to loop around North Road to get to our home. And we were like, what is going on? And we started videoing it. And really, there was road closure, down vehicles, police. They closed one side of the road, and it created quite a crazy. So then we actually went down to the canal road just to see, is there really runoff going on? And there was. It was very impactful. I wish we could submit the videos, but the pictures are pretty good.
3
for you to
minutes.
see.
All
All
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chrissy,
One of
all
the
right.
effects of climate change.
Yes. That is true. That is
Storms are
true.
more frequent and more powerful.
All right, so Mia, you are next, followed by Bonnie Doyle.
So to continue out environmental, next we'll talk about land. So according to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, critical environmental areas, CEAs, are areas in the state with one or more of the following characteristics: a feature that is a benefit or threat to human health, an exceptional or unique natural setting, an exceptional or unique social, historical, archaeological, recreational, or educational value, or an inherent ecological, geological, or hydrological sensitivity to change that may be adversely affected by any physical disturbance. Mashut Beach, less than a half mile away from the site, is a CEA. The New York State DEC GIS map locator shows tidal wetland areas on both the Peconic and Shinnecock shorelines less than a half mile from the proposed site. Coastal wetlands and estuaries are biologically and physically dynamic and are among the most productive and valuable ecosystems in the world. Visual. Visual pollution detracts from the aesthetic characteristic of a location. Physical pollution affects the overall well-being and quality of life of a community, reduces aesthetic appeal, economic health, and civic sense. Scenic conservation is a vital consideration as places expand and grow. Fostering new development that respects the special character of places, their distinctive geographical features, cultures, climate, and natural systems is essential. With no checks on visual pollution, our aesthetic places will be eroded and lost. Well water. Many residents, including myself and many of my neighbors in the area, depend on well water. Have any studies measured anticipated environmental impact at this at-risk water supply? There is anecdotal evidence of toxic chemical runoffs from BESS sites installed around the world. When will we know the effects of LFP on well water? Will there be a baseline study done? Wildlife. Piping plover, least tern, turtles, osprey, salamanders, and toads reside in or around the area close to the site. According to the New York State DEC, piping plover, which are endangered, and least tern, which are threatened, have been documented nesting within a third mile of the projected site. Investigative reconnaissance done by the applicant was 1 day in 2021. Is this sufficient? Noise will also be spoken about by a neighbor. In an effect to fix our damage that has been done to our planet, we may be risking our surrounding water, wildlife, and community, so are we actually getting anywhere by doing this? This has always been about location. We are completely in support of BESS, just not in this location, because again, we care about our environment. We want to protect our environment. Locating a large industrial BESS facility in a residential and recreational area is just wrong. Site this in
30
an industrial
seconds.
area where there's less chance of destroying other elements and our environment. In closing, I would like to read from the sustainability element of the plan. Southampton's sense of identity and its success as a world-class resort destination are based on traditional rural and maritime land use patterns that have been eroded over time. For Southampton, sustainable land use also means maintaining the types of landscapes and uses that have shaped the town's character for centuries, which have made it so distinctive and which are cherished by town residents.
3 minutes.
And from the conservative plan, the wealth of the natural resources of Southampton from the Pine Barrens and its pristine aquifer to its estuaries, wetlands, beaches, parks, and open spaces are integral for Southampton's unique quality of life enjoyed by both seasonal and year-round residents. As such, the ecological integrity of Southampton's natural resources must be maintained and protected.
Thank you, Mayor. Bonnie, you are followed by Craig Muehlenhausen.
Yes, good afternoon. Bonnie Doyle. I live right off of North Road. I'm going to talk about noise pollution, something very near and dear to my heart because my area tends to be kind of loud. And 2 residents will follow me speaking of the same topic. The application for the 100 megawatt battery storage canal BESS facility in a residential community in Hampton Bays should be denied for noise pollution reasons. The proposed canal BESS facility would contain the Between the Bays community of Hampton Bays with noxious, invasive, potentially harmful levels of noise pollution. Noise emitted from the multiple subsystems in 30 BESS units is an inadequately addressed threat. This includes cooling systems that emit ceaseless noise from outlet and inlet airflow vents and pumps from each of the 30 enclosures, air cooling vans from inverters that produce a constant buzzing sound, and transformers with externally mounted, incessantly whirring fans. At the town hall meeting, BESS Canal rep stated that the noise level was 55 dBA and later stated it was 43 dBA. These data are extremely suspect. Were there valid site-specific field tests? Did they take into consideration the current high level of noise pollution in the site from the Long Island Railroad, traffic on the Shinnecock Canal Highway Bridge, Sunrise Highway traffic, North Road traffic, and regular commuter helicopter traffic, which uses the area as a right-of-way through multi-engine jet on approaches to the West Hampton Airport, to say nothing of the Dream Dance Club. No data has been collected on the site's projected cumulative sound pollution in which BESS Canal site would substantially contribute. And a survey of available published noise assessment studies cast out on the Canal BESS noise level data released by the applicant. Sites which are considered smaller, 30 megawatts, than Canal BESS, 100 megawatts, employ similar systems and measured at greater distance produced higher readings, 59.4 dBA versus 43. Both readings do not include the ambient noise, very significant. Ambient noise was measured at 58 dBA on the deck of a resident on a typical afternoon. On Friday at 5:40 it registers 76.
30 seconds.
Imagine combining this ambient din with the BESS noise assaulting our ears 24 hours a day. A sketchy BESS Canal noise mitigation plan calls for berms and vegetation. Not going to work. Based on the applicant's casual approach to the serious environmental application, we have grave concerns for the health and well-being of our residents. Noise pollution is very bad for your health. A New York Times June 9th article reported that over time, noise can chronically affect the amygdala and sympathetic nervous systems.
3 minutes.
Which can lead to inflammation, hypertension, all kinds of stuff that you don't want to be involved
Bonnie,
in.
can you wrap up?
Wrapping up. The EPA recommended 30 decibels for quality sleeping. It states that extended exposure, anything over 55 to 60, is disturbing to sleep. Further states that noise below 70 needs to be below 70 to prevent induced hearing loss. Clearly, the noise is an issue that must be studied in detail. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, so Craig is next.
Hi,
followed
my name's-
by Nancy Dubrowski.
My name is Craig Millenhouse, and I'm continuing with the noise. There's 3 of us speaking. So the best sound noise population and the pollution coming in is going to be on top of what you have. Is very difficult for, you can hear the highway even where I live. Okay, so the highway and the helicopters. It's not only the West Hampton Airport, but the helicopters are supposed to come across the bay and then through our neighborhood basically. And every Thursday, it starts up again, and you hear it. So, anyway, basically, the dBA that was supposedly going to be admitted from the BESS system is 53. It's a vague number, okay? But we don't think it's going to be that loud, because it's going to be loud. There's 3 things that emit, but all 3 things are never in there. I don't think they put them all together for their base number. If you understand what I'm saying, it's 43 here, but then if you add on the cooling system, and one of the biggest things that we never talked about, or I haven't talked about yet, is that when it's running in different times, right? So it's running peak sometimes it's running low, etc. It needs to be like, I went and looked at it. These tests need to be done not for a day. It needs to be done for like a week-long period to see when, if it's truly going to be done correctly, when it's going to be the noisiest. People are trying to sleep. When it's going to be the quietest. When are they drawing the energy from the other sources, which is generally going to be in the evening, right? When the energy's cheaper, it's in the evening or in the middle of the night when they're buying the energy and bringing it back down, correct? So therefore, it's probably going to be louder in the middle of the night when people are trying to sleep. So those are my concerns and my part of the speech. Nancy's going to finish up.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Nancy, before you start, let me just say who's on deck. Julie, Rucco? Rocco? Rocco, okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
From Hampton Bays. Most concerning, it appears that the impact of noise on the community was only raised after the site had been selected. Investments had been initiated and a marketing effort underway to sell approval of Canal BESS to various government entities. A thorough noise assessment should have been one of the first issues addressed in preliminary discussions. Fast-tracking a 100 megawatts facility into a residential zone without establishing thorough empirical sound emission perimeters is unconscionable. A pre-selection noisy study should have been provided the quantitative basis as to whether the site location is appropriate or incompatible within a community due to its proximity to adjacent properties and other sensitive receptor sites. A pre-selection noise assessment conducted by a reputable engineering firm should have been provided. Number 1, a methodology for defining unwanted or annoying sound levels that disrupt normal activities. Number 2, an evaluation of what is known as the community noise equivalent level, which is a 24-hour weighted average for sound. This includes ambient background levels due to traffic noise. 3, an evaluation of the projected operational equipment on-site noise levels based on published information for the various subsystems of the Canal BESS 100 megawatts configuration. 30 separate inverters, 1 per storage unit, estimated to be 85 to 100 dBA, 30 container HVAC systems, estimated to be 80 to 90 dBA. 4, sound information should be calculated and projected on a noise data contour map identifying measured noise levels at varying distances from the site. 5, a separate model should be developed for an on-site projected construction noise map. Number 6, a complete noise assessment report with noise level data, noise level contour maps, a summary of the sources of noise, and a model of noise received at a broad sample of adjacent structures. 7, a detailed model of noise abatement measures and recommendation. Based on the hurried and incomplete site application and the unanswered and even unraised questions of noise pollution, a moratorium needs to be put in place on the application of Canal. There are too many potential environmental impacts that need to be studied and addressed. One way
30
to accomplish this is to perform a vigorous environmental impact assessment and prepare a thorough environmental impact statement. The best way to solve the issue of sound pollution and the other obstacles present in this application is to employ a common sense solution to mitigate industrial noise pollution, locate industrial facilities in industrial zone residential communities are for people, not for giant, ugly, noisy, dangerous industrial equipment. Put
3
a stop to
minutes.
Best Mess so we could regain our trust in you.
Thank you. Okay, so Julie, you're next, followed by Georges.
Hi, I'm Julie Rawacco. I live in Shinnecock Hills with my husband and 2 children. I'm born and raised in Southampton town. We have operated a business in the town also for over 30 years, and I'm speaking regarding Canal Bess and the lack of contingency planning. The application for locating the Canal Bess storage facility in a residential community should be denied for lack of contingency planning and resources to mitigate injury and damage in the event of an emergency. It appears that in an apparent effort to downplay the inherent hazards of siting an unprecedentedly huge industrial battery storage facility in a residential community, the applicant never presented or discussed with detail how to respond to a fire, explosion, or hazardous material release. With any type of industrial facility where potential health and environmental hazards are identified, particularly those that can have catastrophic impacts on surrounding communities, it is an applicant's duty to prepare a draft emergency response plan. Rather than identify and address this requirement at the onset of discussions, the applicant described the clearly designated residential zone benignly as remote and industrial. If the application procedure had been done correctly, draft comprehensive contingency plans should have been presented and reviewed as part of the SECRA application process. They are not in the public record and likely never produced. If the New York State Environmental Quality Resources Act assessment study form had been correctly prepared and examined by the local agencies, both the town and planning boards, to properly identify the required health and safety contingency plans and resources, the potential environmental impacts, and the social and economic considerations during their discretionary review, this application should never have been fast-tracked. The reason so much emphasis is placed on contingency planning is that accidents, system failures, do happen. As reported previously in citing the Best Failure database, these events happen more than twice a month. That is one reason why contingency planning should have been addressed and understood from the earliest discussions of the site placement, particularly if that placement was to be of an unprecedentedly large scale in a residential community. Feedback from early public meetings indicated that local fire officials were totally unprepared to address the contingency requirements of the Bess emergencies. To make informed decisions on proceeding with Canal Bess, the community, their elected and appointed officials should have been presented with an exposition of the contingencies that placement of a 100 megawatt facility in a residential community would require and the costs relating to meeting those requirements.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And George, you're followed by Rich Iannelli.
Hello and thank you. My name is George. I live approximately like 100 yards away from this proposed facility. Before I continue reading, I just want to say me and my family were, still nervous and scared about this, and we stand to lose everything: our quality of life, possibly our health, the value of our homes, which we worked so hard for, and the people who proposed this facility stand to gain everything. So it's definitely it's to their benefit and not to ours. So I'm going to continue to read. To fully understand best systems hazards to the surrounding environment, human health, and safety, the applicant should have prepared a draft emergency action plan, an EAP. Before making decisions regarding the replacement, the draft plan and EAP would have provided all parties with information regarding emergency response preparation and planning for the multitude of risks and hazards associated with the system. Draft plans should identify fire departments, ambulance companies, and other local responders on call, all officers and personnel who should be thoroughly familiar with emergency response considerations. Best first responders need to be aware of best technology deployed in the community and be properly trained and ready to handle different types of systems and incidents. Training and pre-planning are critical components to making sure the community's first responders are ready should an emergency arise. A training regimen including classroom and online training modules, along with drills of individual first responders, their units, and large-scale integrated drills of all designated primary and secondary units. In the planning process, the fire departments need to engage in drills for a range of events involving BESS at an actual location where BESS is present. If there is an event, firefighters should already know what type of system it is and have ready access to necessary contact information, including who the facility operator manager is, which manufacturer to call for more information, and procedures they will need to safely protect life and property. Specific event challenges and the strategies needed to combat them so that all firefighters and other emergency responders are prepared to effectively engage the full range of potential conditions, shocking and arching in the presence of water,
30 seconds.
arcing in the presence of water, thermal battery runaway explosions, exposures to toxic gases and fumes, chemical releases, etc. Requisite contamination, containment, and decontamination equipment and procedures that should be in place. Contact information and protocols for interacting effectively with the facility emergency response coordinator. Post-fire incident spill response procedures for mitigating hazardous materials releases impacting air and water. Responses to natural disasters such as flash flooding, tornadoes, hurricanes, lightning, and winter storms. And emergency contact information and automated alert system.
3 minutes.
A projected inventory of all systems and equipment needed to convert all the first responder organizations and personnel to best emergency ready status, including hazmat incident gear and contamination and containment and cleanup equipment. Thank you very much.
Josh. All right, Rich Iannelli, followed by Gail Lombardi.
Hi, I'm a retired Hampton Bays marine science teacher. I've been in Hampton Bays for 27 years, and prior to being a teacher, I was an operations superintendent for a hazardous waste company and involved in many remediation projects throughout Long Island. It's particularly concerning that the issue of site security has been virtually neglected during the application process. The information that has been provided is contradictory, with fence heights listed as 4 feet, 6 feet, and 7 feet. Whatever the height of the fence has not been addressed is the very real need to secure the facilities from vandals and terrorists. Canal Bess is a textbook example of a high-value, low-security target, with a huge potential for damage to the site and the surrounding community, and virtually no adequate protection planned. A commercially available explosive tossed over the Canal Bess fence among 100 million-watt lithium batteries in a residential community at a choke point of eastern Long Island would have catastrophic results. At the very best, an opinion from Homeland Security Department should have been solicited regarding the suitability of locating this high-value, low-security target at a vulnerable residential community at a rail and road choke point. In the event of approval, further consultation should be solicited regarding incident prevention and mitigation, including access to requisite federal resources. Comprehensive emergency evacuation plans and procedures coordinated with the town, county, and state police officials would have to be in place before any installation or activation of the Canal Bess. The Warwick, New York fire in June 23 was active for a week, during which the area for 1/4 of a mile around had to be evacuated. In a similar event occurred at a Canal Bess, thousands of Hampton Bay residents would need to be evacuated and sheltered. Because of the proposed Canal Bess site, it is at an east-west choke point for all rail and road traffic. Tens of thousands of East End men, women, and children could be impacted, overwhelming available police and first responder resources. Residents in the immediate proximity of the proposed facility might be well advised to have ready access personal protection equipment for themselves, family, and guests. Because of the potential presence of carcinogens produced by a fire incident in a lithium Bess facility, contamination containment and decontamination systems and trained personnel must also be in place. This potential problem is made more acute by the size of the facility and the proximity of residential community. Firefighting methods for Bess incidents have concentrated on containment rather than trying to extinguish the fire. This effort can require hundreds of thousands of gallons of water over several days. Assuming that the water was available in this area of low water pressure, There is no apparent adequate provision to contain the runoff of highly contaminated water pouring over the facility and washing downhill towards the Shinnecock Canal, and then flowing into Peconic and Shinnecock Bays. The potential for ecological disaster, in my opinion, is terrifying. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Gail Lombardi is next, followed by Roger Moores.
So I've, Gail Lombardi, I've been a resident since '99. I followed this administration for 8 years, and I know you guys are sitting down. You have done a lot of good for this community, for the town of Southampton. Land use and zoning is not one of them, where the law, the facts, and the truth are optional, in my opinion, or based on my observations. Okay, again, spent hundreds of hours reviewing all the legislative history of how we got to best approval. And I submitted a letter earlier today, an 8-page letter of my research, and I'll give the original to Sunday when I'm done. I'm trying to follow my notes, so give me some leeway here. So I just want to touch on some of the things I mentioned. I support the moratorium for all applications. Whether or not it's a legal requirement for an exemption, I don't know what the exemption actually needs to have, but it's against the spirit and the legislative intent of the moratorium. Number one, under town law, you are given the power to plan and regulate land use for the purpose of protecting the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens, not to have some state goal or some zealot or some advocate win over what we're supposed to be doing here. You are supposed to. That is your goal. That is your responsibility under town law. Under town law, zoning is not is required to be in accordance with the comprehensive plan. Saying this is in compliance with the comprehensive plan doesn't make it so. Some of the previous speakers spoke about some of the inconsistencies. I gave you some examples. There was no mention of the Hampton Bays Corridor Strategic Plan, which was adopted as part of the comprehensive plan, which if you look at where some of the zoning is in village business and highway business and residential, completely inconsistent. Not one piece is consistent. Okay, give me a second here. As far as SECRA, I respectfully disagree with Janice. I submitted in my, as far as I'm concerned, you did not follow SECRA, both in your EAF, which I filed and received a copy, and your negative declaration. I submitted quotes from the CPLR, from the guidance, from the handbook. If Janice wants some cases, I'll gladly give her cases. But I agree with Janice, it doesn't have to be all-encompassing, but saying there is no material weakness or saying there's no material adverse effect doesn't make it so. There's very specific guidelines for what you're supposed to do in an EAF. And Jay, you're the applicant and you're the signatory. And I just want to throw it out there as a little factoid. If there's false and misleading information within that, and you file that with New York State because it was a type 1, it's actually a Class D felony. So you might want to keep that in mind the next time you take somebody else's, advice. You might want to look at that a little more carefully. Okay, number 4, in the town relied on unattainable renewable goal from 2017 to be 100% renewable sourced electricity. By 2001, you should have known you couldn't meet those goals in 2025. So you knew that battery energy storage systems were not going to be from renewable energy. It makes common sense that it wouldn't have been. It's basically fossil
30
fuel.
seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry. You just have to give me a second.
I gave you an extra minute.
Okay, you didn't need, okay. Okay, this is the map, a reduced version of the map that was in the EAF. I'm sure you will analyze this. Completely inconsistent with the corridor strategic plan for Hampton Bays, the 10-year build-out study, and the GEIS. The GEIS encompassed all of Hampton Bays. It wasn't just for the corridor. Completely inconsistent. Sorry. My last comment is specifically.
Yeah, please wrap up, yeah.
I'm sorry. The last comment is specifically to Hampton Bays. To me, you're discriminating against Hampton Bays. I just have to find my notes. Okay. is discriminatory against Hampton Bays. Hampton Bays is one of 17 unincorporated communities in town of Southampton. It continues to bear disproportionate burdens of higher tax rates, higher density, higher school population, low property values, and other environmental injustices as compared to the other communities in the town of Southampton. I tried to make it bigger. I'm sorry. It is unconscionable that you guys decided to put these in the town in Hampton Bays at all, when we have the most dense community. There's nowhere in Hampton Bays that you're not going to run against some residential neighborhood. And so in closing, if the shoe doesn't fit, we shouldn't be wearing it. Thank you.
All right, Roger, followed by Karen Murcott. Thank you, Karen.
Yes, my name is Roger Moores, and I'm at 15 Bayview Avenue in Hampton Pine Groves, which is exactly half a mile from the proposed BESS plant. Today I wanted to go what I think is the most important thing, is all of these other concerns are extremely valid, the noise, the location, the everything else. I want to talk to what it is. Now, first off, I wanted to ask that we have this new moratorium, or asking for 6 months. Is there possible a change of concept? Time doesn't matter here. The answer does. Is there any way a moratorium could happen so that we have a decent answer, not just that 6 months of time expired? Let's just think about that. I want to say thank you for letting me speak. I consider it a privilege, and I thank you for your time also. Today, my biggest focus is on thermal runaway. When I was a youngster, I saw how fireworks and munitions were made in places in the United States for those purposes. They were in buildings thousands of yards apart on open fields with dome-like protection or whatever, so as to spread all these explosive things out. Guess what the official BESS proposal is? 720 units put on top of one another. And when thermal runaway gets started, it takes off in an instant. It is not stoppable. It is only maybe containable with a lot of water and a lot of help. The thing, though, is that we also, if there were a fire at this location, we don't have to worry about the foam going 40 some odd feet down into the canal from the firefighting foam, which has been proven to pollute our aquifers, because according to the BESS operative statement, it's that the water will only be used to cool the surrounding features, and it will be clean water only. The reason being that the official BESS recommendation is to stand back and let it burn out. Let's just to talk about what this creature is. When I say I'm focusing on thermal runaway, it's obviously lithium. It's self-oxidizing, which means it reignites its own fire immediately. It starts to fire at 500 degrees, and it typically burns in an explosion at over 2,000 degrees. This isn't normal stuff that you think of, step on a cigarette butt and put it out. This is something we've never explored before. It's off the charts.
30 seconds.
So the thing is, I come down to this, that whatever lipstick color you put on a pig, it's still a pig. And I'm not a chemist, but I know enough, because it's been my life's vocation for 50 years, that this is still a problem. What is our contingency plan for any of this? As others have noticed, what if? We're going to figure it out when there's an explosion? Kind of late.
3 minutes.
Sorry, you have to wrap up.
Well, anyway, I'll wrap it up. So I would just want to know that there are some contingency plans, and thinking of other sites for this other than there, and I would recommend Penn Station or the George Washington Bridge, and let them worry about the thermal runaway, and Mr. Archer can eat up some of the lower voltage transmission. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, I have Karen Murcott. What? Oh, you're passing. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were just saying that you're here. Okay, I have another Murcott.
No, there are plenty of us.
Yes, I have several, but this one doesn't have a first name, just Murcott.
I think that was me, Gail. I figured you know me by now.
I got a win. All right, so
Yes.
Karen is passing. Just give me 1 second. Pass. And this is Gail. Is that G-A?
I-L.
I-L.
Sorry.
Okay. And then Lynn Murcott is next.
I'll pass.
And you're passing, so hold on. How about, and then Rome Arnold. Okay. Go ahead, Gail.
Okay, you already know my name is Gail Murcott,
Yes.
one of many. And I know that you know I've spoken here many times before. I have still not made it to the beach. You guys have to be, and women have to be so tired of hearing the same comments over and over again. So I'm not going to go through any of that. I'd just like to speak to a couple of things such as the money. All of these studies that really should be done, as all of these people mentioned, we all know consultants and everything else, they charge a fortune. The money can be better spent in Hampton Bays than us being the first to go out there, and maybe not the first, but second or whatever, to go out there and put in a plant like this, particularly in this area. You know, I want to make it clear that aside from there just isn't enough information on this, the area that it's in is just ridiculous. But aside from that, I think we can better use the money that would be spent to get all these experts to try to answer some of these questions. I think it could be better spent in Hampton Bays in many other ways. I would like to ask a question if you can answer it. The water project that was just done on Newtown Road and Sunset Avenue, and under the Shinnecock Canal. Everything that I heard on that and everyone we tried to speak to said that there was a private investor that had invested in that project. Does the water project have anything to do with the BESS plant? And, is there any tie-in there or for that purpose? I don't understand why the private investor has not been.
There's no, I think what you may be thinking of in terms of private investor, the Canoe Place Inn, the boathouses.
Yes.
Were required in the original approval to put in a valve for fire suppression, to allow water to flow in that direction. We changed that project to do a directional drill under the canal, and so that the developer of the Canoe Place Inn had to take the money that was going to go to the valve and put it toward that directional drilling. And that was just to relieve pressure, to increase pressure of the water on the east side of Shinnecock Canal. So
Well, thank you for that
increase the
answer,
water
because
supply.
now I understand.
Yeah, there's nothing related to the BESS on that.
Okay, a member of our community, the Hampton Groves Beach Association, spoke here. He's a civil engineer for the United States Navy, and he spoke, I can't remember if it was here or before the planning board, but he's worked as a civil engineer for the United States Navy for 40 years. And in that 40 years, his job was to handle things for the Navy that were of high sensitivity as far as safety goes. And he said these lithium batteries, he said the Navy has determined and put on their list as one of the top problems or concerns. If the U.S. Navy doesn't want any part of it, I don't think we do either. And at this point, I understand the renewable energy. I have solar on my roof. And I try to do everything I can to buy energy-efficient equipment and everything else. But, with that being said, I think we need to step back from this. 6 months is going to go like that, and we all know that. And I think we need to step back from it. Let some other places take the lead on it. to allow, but I also want to say, to allow the two projects that have currently applied, to allow them to go forward, if that in case is done, then you may as well just surround the whole community and let us blow up together. Thank you very much for your time.
Rome Arnold is next, followed by Ray D'Angelo. I don't see Ray. Is he in the other room? Okay, all right, so Rome, you're next, followed by Ray D'Angelo.
Yeah. Reintroduce Rome Arnold, 150 Herrick Road, Southampton. That's the village, but I snuck over here. And you all deserve combat pay for today. I chose to go last to keep an eye and try not to repeat. And actually what I want to address is transparency and accountability in the process, and specifically electronic information. So the filings, the big 300-pager is simply in paper. To require a proposal or the person proposing to also provide 5 or 6 USB thumb drives is no cost to the town. And that would allow us to go in, take a laptop, download those files, go home and see what we're doing, as opposed to sitting in a conference room for 3 hours. It's not a big request. I would also say that, frankly, I've been offended by the condescending attitude from some of the self-appointed experts in this town who in fact have no professional credentials. If we are going to hire people and pay them money, I think we need to know what their credentials are, and I think coming back to electronic filing, that should be part of the documents that are filed. So if we hire someone, I want to see their resume. Then if they give us advice, I'd like to see that in the file and also electronic, so available for public view. And then finally, I remember from June 8th, this one of the proponents of this thing talking about his interviews with the fire department. I went back and I read the June 8 minutes. There's really nothing in there. So the only way I could really know what he actually said was to go back and watch the video. That's nonsense. This stuff, if they're going to respond to you in a professional manner, it should be in writing and it should be electronic so that we can go in and look at it. Well, how much time do I have?
A minute.
A
and
minute,
10
wow.
seconds.
So quickly address 2 false promises that have been made over and over again. My credentials in this regard are I led the team that advised the Minister of Economy of Argentina in creating a return on capital rate-based system that mimics ours. Our utility's primary goal is to provide uninterruptible power. If you attach interruptible power to that system, you're going to have a problem. Those costs go up, your rate base goes up, your rates go up. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday about how the costs of these alternative energies are going up. Now let's be clear, wind is free, sunshine is free, but the equipment that you use to gather it is not. The notion that batteries never, does anybody have a cell phone that ran out of juice? So the notion these batteries are going to protect us from an outage, I think most outages happen because trees fall on power lines, not because we didn't have a battery connected to the system. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Ray D'Angelo is next. I got a second card by George Georges, but I think there's only one George Georges. So, and then I have Marion Bowden. You haven't spoken yet. So there was a letter by you, but you yourself have not spoken. So I got Ray, and then Marion, you're on deck. Okay.
I didn't bring my inhaler, and I might have some difficulty, so I'm going to ask, I may have to go over. I have a disability, so I feel I should be granted that time. First of all, I'd like to give an update on the Fremantle Highway, which is a car-carrying ship that caught on fire off the Netherlands. It was built in 2013, and it's approximately 200 meters, which is probably about 650 feet. And it can carry 6,000 cars. It had 4,000 cars, and supposedly 500 of them were electric vehicles. And the reason why this interests me is that this ship was built in 2013 with carbon dioxide fire suppressing systems. And what they feel, I mean, we'll know on the Alliance website, we'll get the full story, that when they were loading these cars, and many of these cars use the lithium iron phosphate battery. The low models use, because they don't hold energy as well as the lithium ion batteries. That when they were loading it, and the battery packs are on the bottom, they were damaged when they were loading these cars. And I think 16 hours out of port, they caught fire. But the thing that caught my attention was that the carbon dioxide system did not put the fire out. It could not suppress the fire, and the fire took control of the whole ship. And I've read that before, where CO, lithium is it's very it's self-oxygenating, and the fact that the CO, it combines with it and generates more oxygen, so it's very difficult to extinguish these fires. And to give some perspective to everybody, and I think I am an expert in this, that a regular car fire burns around 1,200 to 1,500 degrees, and a booster tank, which is about 400 or 500 gallons, will be enough to extinguish it. A car fire with these batteries, it burns like anywhere up to 3,000 degrees, and copious amounts of water. It could be 30,000 gallons. You can't extinguish them. You can't get at the batteries that's on the underside of the car. So my point is that this is a very difficult situation with these batteries. It's not safe, and we all know that. And getting back to, I don't know how, when you change the zoning, that Janice Shearer's department came up with a negative declaration to allow you to change the zoning to make this acceptable in a residential neighborhood. I just don't understand that. I want to commend all the people that spoke before me, identifying all the problems with this thing. If they knew it, why didn't she know it? She's getting paid to know this stuff. And what happened now is that the planning board adopted a negative declaration, which is just beyond comprehension to me, with all this stuff going on.
30 seconds.
And I'm going over. So anyway, the other problem is, we're going to go, there's a member that's on the planning board that's also, I think, co-chair of the Sustainability Committee. And the Sustainability Committee, I have cards here for people that are members of that committee that work, that are subcontractors for various companies. So I think this is really, at the best, it's a conflict of interest. At the worst, it's a form of corruption, really. They shouldn't be involved with the sustainability, which is an appendage of the town, should not be involved advocating for this plan, let alone that you have somebody on that board. She has to recuse herself. She's been on this, in this committee from the beginning. It's outrageous, really, what goes on here. There's such an incestual relationship over here. And the last thing I want to mention is that we have, the village people here. I mean, this will never be in Sag Harbor, Mr. Schiavone. He spoke at very eloquently at the civic meeting the other day about being a community, a shore community and all this, but it'll never be in Sag Harbor. Mr. Bouvier will never be up there by West Hampton, and it's not going to be in Southampton Village.
4 minutes.
Even though you said that you would live next to one of them. So, I mean, this is outrageous. This thing is, we have the village people here forcing this thing on top of us. We're a working middle-class community. We're hardworking. We love Hampton Bays. And it's just simply outrageous that this thing is being pushed on us with a negative declaration. I really feel that if that's the best she can do, she should be removed from her job, really. Thank you.
All right, Marion, you are next, followed by Stephen Semino? I think it's Semino.
Okay. Ray is a tough act to follow. I should have shuffled the cards or something. Before I even introduce myself, I just want to throw one thing in the mix, not to discuss it. Last week, there was a Long Island Railroad derailment in Queens. The entire train derailed. And it's been one of my fears that the Long Island Railroad tracks are so close to the best site that, God forbid, something happens. First of all, it could be block the way out, if we have to escape. But also I'm envisioning a car getting on fire, which sets everything on fire and sets it off. We have to think of an accident is something you don't know is going to happen. That's why it's called an accident. Anyway, my name is Marion Bowden. I live on Hampton Bays. I live on the wrong side of the canal. I live over near the high school. I did learn to swim at Mashut Beach, and I love that area so much. It's emotional to me. In fact, a friend of mine was here this week from Spain, and he has to go to 2 places, the inlet, and to have a picnic on a bench at the canal watching the boats go by. It was a wonderful experience. That's how valuable that area is to all of us, whether we live in that area or not. I also want to say, I want to recognize that you've got a lot on your plate. I realize that. You're covering things from A to Z in this town, so you can't be an expert in everything. And therefore, as the heads, the bosses, whatever you want to say, you have to rely on necessity on information given to you by responsible officials in the town. And I want to bring up the elephant in the room, although Ray kind of did. It's the planning department as far as I am concerned. The planning department is a very big problem. Hampton Bays is 9% of the area, 21% of the population, and yet 2 of the only 2 proposed best sites, although one's not official, or both happen to be in Hampton Bays. Isn't that a coincidence? And Hampton Bays, a hamlet with no industrial zone, when there are plenty of opportunities elsewhere in town. I was looking at the maps. Why should we bear everything? And I really do think, while we're at it, that we should revert back. Something zoned R is residential. That's it. I don't care where it is. I don't care whether it's in Watermill or West Hampton or Spionk or whatever. R is residential. We should never have anything like that, never even consider it. Okay, going back. The EAF, which is the Environmental Assessment Form, for the DOD and the CEQA, was very deficient. It was appallingly deficient.
30 seconds.
30 seconds? Good God.
I'm just the timekeeper.
Oh, please.
That's all I am.
I'm going to pull a Ray here, okay? The DOD was done by Janice's department, and someone with no legal training or experience managed to prove in court it was deficient. Someone with no legal training or management experience proved in court it was deficient. And instead of being appreciated by the town, they have vilified her. Although to Hampton Bays, she is our hero, and I would like to acknowledge Gail Lombardi, who has saved our buck. And at the same time, there was the NPV contract that was inadvertently put into the contract, and everybody apologized that it was there. Nobody really apologized for the sentiment. And the sentiment, we know darn well, came out of the planning department. NPV did not make up that term, wiping out the thing and the opposition. They were repeating stupidly what someone probably told them over the phone or in person. And so what's happened? Was NPV fired? No. We have other contracts with NPV. We should have not done business with them from that moment on. The town also has chosen to ignore New York State's PEJA requirements, which the PEJA requirements, for those who don't know, are potential environmental justice areas, areas that have economic status or minorities or communities that tend to get projects or could get projects that others don't want. And talk about minority status, the Hampton Bay schools are 63% Hispanic. If that doesn't qualify, nothing does. Ads are supposed to be put in the papers in the language. We didn't even know about it. Can you imagine the Hispanic community? Okay, I'll end.
Thank you, Mary.
Oh, wait, I just have one thing to say. I want to say it to you, but I want to say it about them, but I want you to hear it. It's a Mexican saying, and it's this. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. I'd like you to take that into account in the future. Thank you.
Steve is followed by Liz Hook.
Stephen Chimino, walking distance from the proposed site. I just have one, this is my 3rd meeting, the first time I'm speaking. And I just want to ask one question to the applicant, to the attorney for the applicant, which I don't longer see, to all the experts who are all for this, to the members of the planning board, the members of the town board, to Governor Hochul, and I don't think anybody here cares where you live. But would you, or would you want any member of your family to live near this proposed facility? Let your conscience be your guide. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Liz Hook, followed by Tyler Starlight.
My name is Liz Hook. I live in Hampton Bays. I've lived here for 20 years, 10 of them or 12 of them full-time.
Get so close.
Too close?
Yeah, you're too close.
Too close, okay. First thing I'd like to ask, Mr. Archer submitted a letter but did not read it. Is it possible for us for that letter to be released? Because we
Sure.
can't respond to it if we don't know what
Yeah, it's
it
part of the record.
contains.
Absolutely.
Okay. Second thing is, I am so impressed with my neighbors. I cannot believe the wealth of information that they have found and provided to this town board and to the planning board. And my question is, did you get that information from your in-house experts and the other experts that worked on this? I mean, if you had heard all of this information, which you should have, which the planning department should have provided to you, would you have gone forward thinking that this was a benign use? I don't get it. I don't understand. The EAF prepared by the town of Southampton is so wholly deficient because it only superficially assessed the potential threats from thermal runaway fires, release of noxious fumes in the air and water, and round-the-clock noise. The potential for significant environmental impacts from a BESS facility is highest at the point of damage or equipment breakdown. Yet the town's EAF did not thoroughly consider these events when determining what locations would be appropriate for large-scale, grid-level BESS facilities. Nor did the town make any effort to create a town-wide emergency response plan to address these threats. Recent fires in New York also have demonstrated that something as routine as a rainstorm can cause damage triggering such fires. Without a fulsome and tested emergency response plan, the town should not have approved zoning for BESS facilities because it did not have full information about how to respond to emergencies at such facilities. The town did not meet its statutory obligation under SECRA to take a hard look at all of the potential significant environmental impacts and must correct that now. The EAF lists an astonishing 1,742 sites in the town where grid-level BESS facilities could be built. Where are these sites in Hampton Bays? All along Montauk Highway, our main artery, and in close proximity to the Shinnecock and Peconic Bays. Having read the news reports of fires in Warwick and Lyme, are you really comfortable with citing massive battery storage facilities in the heart of our business district and a residential district virtually in people's backyards and on the shores of our bays? The Sustainability Committee portrays these massive BESS facilities as benign, and residents who oppose BESS facilities in residential areas as hopelessly confused about
30
the nature
seconds.
of these batteries. But I suggest that it is the Sustainability Committee members who are hopelessly confused about the difference between car batteries and grid-level BESS. Either that, or they are disingenuous shills for the corporate interests involved in building such facilities. Facts are facts. Grid-level BESS facilities are intended to support the entire grid on Long Island and are not a benefit just to Southampton residents.
3 minutes.
Scholarly articles have estimated that 1 megawatt hour
Liz, you have to
supplies
wrap.
somewhere between 800 and 1,000 homes. The proposed Canal Southampton BESS is 100 megawatt hours, supplying between 80,000 and 100,000 homes. But there are only 44,000 homes in Southampton. The business plan for this facility is to buy electricity cheaply from the grid at night when rates are lower and sell it back to the grid during the day when the rates are higher. Make no
Liz,
mistake.
Liz, you have to
This
wrap
is
up.
about big business money making. Thank you.
All right, Tyler Starlight. Is Tyler here? Tyler? And Tyler, there's Tyler, okay. And Tyler is followed by Margaret Freelander.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
My name is Starlight Tyler, and I just want to say I'm not a chemist, an engineer, or any of that, but I am a homeowner, I'm a taxpayer, and I have been invested in this community for quite a few years, and my children will be invested in this community for years to come. We don't want to live in imminent danger. We have a right to breathe fresh air, we have a right to swim in fresh waters, and more importantly, our children have a right to enjoy the lands that we've all enjoyed. Thank you.
All right, Margaret Freelander, you're the last card I have, and then we'll go to the computer, and I'm sure there's more people there too. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, I'm Margaret Friedlander, Hampton Bays resident, and also a candidate for Southampton Town Trustee. I am also not going to repeat all the amazing information that our community went out on their own and gathered, factual information, not Wikipedia articles that some from the Sustainability Committee disingenuously described for the people who were concerned about grid scale BESS in this community. You guys that know that I've been talking about this since 2022. I think I'll take a little credit in terms of flagging this issue to my community, which ran with it and exceeded all expectations in terms of educating themselves. I'm just going to jump to the fact that we now have a 6-month moratorium that I assume will definitely happen. I understand you, Mr. Supervisor, mentioned that you're going to have to make, do the work within that 6 months period of time. But I think you should be clear that the last thing anybody wants to hear at the end of this 6 months is that experts say it's okay. It's not okay for all the reasons that everybody stated in this room. And I'd like to just mention part of what was in an editorial that I wrote and is in the press this week, that safety evaluations are inherently subjective, guided by factors such as the evaluator's experience and expertise, the system owner's tolerance for risk and interpretation of safety-related data, and the roles of those assessing safety also influence their perspective and priorities. I am in agreement with some of the people that mentioned that the so-called experts that are on the planning board don't merit that definition of expert. I think they're woefully ill-informed and should not be relied on to advise this board or any other future board. I think that would be inappropriate. And then I hope one of the end states coming out of this moratorium is that you look through the Southampton Water Protection Plan and make sure that BESS is included and how you're going to deal with it, where it's going to be, what the impacts of it are. Same with the other document that's on the books, which is the rules and regulations for management and products of town waters.
30
I mean,
seconds.
we're talking about grid scale BESS and the implications, the environmental negative implications. And I think it needs to be line itemed as to how you're going to deal with it. And I expect that the results of the moratorium will be an overwhelming consensus that they do not belong in residential areas, anywhere near environmentally sensitive areas and our waterways. And as you all know, there's new technology that's evolving that don't involve lithium ion battery.
3 minutes.
And I think that maybe at another point in time in the future, or hopefully your subject matter experts that you're going to bring on to get information are going to talk about those alternative systems. Because when the Sustainability Committee talks about this being green adjacent, let me just say that the mining for these minerals, for these lithium ion batteries, are not sustainable at all. They're very environmentally unfriendly. So I think we need an answer, and hopefully after this 6-month moratorium, the answer will be that there will be no grid scale battery energy storage in residential areas, environmentally sensitive areas, or anywhere near our waterways in the
4
town
minutes.
of Southampton.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to our online audience. So if you are watching this from a remote location and would like to speak at this public hearing on this battery energy storage system moratorium, you need to click the raise hand icon found usually at the bottom of your screen, and we will bring you in.
I have one.
One. Okay, possibly. Hello, we can't hear you yet. Oh. What is your name? Yep.
Casey Petrusik. All right, perfect, great. Hi, my name is Casey Petrusik. I'm with the New York League of Conservation Voters, or NYLCV for short. We are determined to see New York move away from a fossil fuel economy. That means promoting the green energy transition, because we know the greatest risk to our future is not building the energy grid of the future. With the urgent threat of climate change, it's crucial to build energy infrastructure that will help combat the many weather-related disasters that we are seeing, and while also making sure that the energy grid remains reliable for residents. NYLCV believes that battery storage is a practical solution for storing and using intermittent energy sources. Building our battery storage capacity is a crucial element for achieving mandates under the state's climate law of 70% renewable energy by 2030 and 100% clean energy by 2040. By implementing the battery storage systems, Long Island's energy system will become more resilient and stabilize the power grid during weather-related emergencies. These systems will help serve the community during excessive heat days, assist in replacing dirty peaker plants, support the offshore wind transition, and benefit solar initiatives. NYLCV recognizes that there are concerns regarding the safety and location of these facilities, but we also know that with proper safety precautions and noise mitigation efforts, these concerns can be comprehensively addressed, which we encourage all developers to do. NYSCV is committed to serving the people of Long Island and see the implementation of battery storage systems and mutually beneficial collaboration between residents and developers as the next necessary step in achieving our clean energy goals and improving public health across Long Island in a safe and equitable way. Thank you for your opportunity to comment today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did we get his name?
All right, so is there
Casey
any?
Petashik.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else online who wishes to be heard at this public hearing? Please click the raise hand icon.
No, sir.
All right, all right. Okay, so I want to say a couple things. So, one, this is a hearing on a moratorium. It's not a hearing on a specific proposal. It affects that proposal, affects other proposals that would currently being contemplated, as well as ones we may have never heard of. This would stop all processing of all applications related to battery energy storage while the town looks at everything that was said and more. So, assuming those things are true and those concerns are real, yes, we would have to modify the code and determine what zones, if any, it's appropriate in. There's been a learning curve here, and I'll be the first to admit it, because I thought these things were pretty benign. That's why I said I'd live next to one, because I didn't know they were noisy. I didn't know that, I thought there was no traffic. Well, there is no traffic, but, some of the concerns that have been brought to light are serious concerns. So no, if you asked me today would I live next door, I would say no. Okay, but when I was asked, based on the information I had, it seemed like a relatively benign type of use. We all are concerned about climate change, and we should be. We should be concerned about climate change, and we do need to change some of our energy infrastructure to address the warming planet. So that being said, a lot of things were said today, and some things, frankly, I feel like I have to respond to. First of all, our planning functions, and particularly the head of our planning, Janice Shearer, is incredible. She is an incredible public servant. Her heart is completely with this community. She does extraordinary work for us. Her record of accomplishments is long and I am incredibly proud of it. And somebody even had the nerve to say she should resign. I wouldn't accept her resignation if she submitted it. She's an excellent planner, and I consider myself fortunate to have the opportunity to work with you, Janice. And I hope the board feels the same way.
The board does feel the same.
So, we have heard the community. None of us want to put anybody at risk. None of us want anybody to not sleep at night. None of us want to hurt your property values. None of us want to pollute the air or the groundwater. I am, a sponsor of this moratorium. I hear what you're saying. I'm sorry that this situation has occurred, that you are fearing for your public health and safety. And, my intention is to support this 6-month moratorium. After 6 months, if we do not have the answers, it can be extended. Can absolutely be extended. Moratoriums sometimes are, but it's incumbent upon the town to work without unnecessary delay, to make sure that we are taking this moment seriously. It's not just a stall tactic that it all goes away. So we do have to bring in technical expertise. The state is going to be doing a parallel review. Some of that may be helpful to us, but and it's important that review be fact-based, be accurate, and that no one in this process, has any conflicts of interest. That it's very clear that the information we're getting is unfiltered and accurate. So, in terms of next steps, we don't have a resolution to adopt on today. And so what I'd like to do is I would like to move to close the public hearing unless you want to leave the written record open. There's been a lot of opportunity for people to be heard. Since we can't vote on it today, we could potentially leave the written record open for a week or two if people were not able to come today and wanted to comment. Board, do you have a particular preference?
We had one more person that wanted to speak.
We have one more person who wants to
No,
speak?
right here.
Oh, okay, who has not spoken. All right, so we will entertain that comment. All right, let me take you now. Just identify yourself.
Yeah. My name is Kristen Howlett. I'm a resident of Hampton Bays. It's just that this moratorium is useless if you're just going to turn around and provide an exemption to the client and the applicant, and they've already submitted a letter for exemption. So I'm not really sure what you intend on doing. That the exemption clause of this resolution should not have been added without any notice. It should have been subjected to maybe a separate hearing because, again, no notice was given to us. The applicant's letter for an exemption request should be denied immediately. An amendment should be made which says the exemption will not be granted to any proposals in which the location is in a residential area, period. Another amendment which can be added to the exemption wording is no exemption will be granted to any land which is in proximity or so many feet to an evacuation route. It makes no mention of an evacuation route or a residential area, which would cause a delay or blocking of such an evacuation. So I really think you should consider this. I don't know how that exemption wording got in there, wasn't there in our last hearing. And no exemption should be made to this applicant with regard to this location, especially since that's what we're here for. Thank you.
Okay, you can be seated. And you weren't present, I don't think, at the beginning of this.
I've been here the whole time.
Okay, so legal counsel did weigh in on that. So for the moratorium to be legal, there has to be that provision contained within it. Now, we had an earlier moratorium, that did not include current applications being processed. If our intention was to not include this property, we would have gone with that earlier moratorium. Instead, we worked together to craft a moratorium that does include that canal property and everything else. So clearly the board's intention is to pause all battery energy storage. We have to legally have a due process provision. If you want to take it out,
Can I-
then you are just making it so the moratorium gets thrown
Jay,
out
can
by
I-
the courts. So if that's what you want, then we can change it your way. If you want the moratorium to survive, it's got to be
Jay,
in
can I
there.
address that?
Yeah.
That was brought to me by the community before we had this public hearing, and I was given the same advice by legal counsel that it has to be in there. I didn't even take that advice, sorry, Jim. I went online and I searched moratoriums from other towns and other states. Every moratorium that I found has that clause in it. It's just a matter of process. And as was stated, it has to be in there in order for the moratorium to be legal.
So clearly,
The wording was the same in just about every one that I read.
I've been involved with a number of moratoriums. They all have to have that language. But if
It's been in since.
I don't believe you'll see an attempt by the canal property to be exempted, but if it came in, it would have to demonstrate some sort of hardship. And the very basis of this moratorium contemplates stopping all, because of these concerns. So it would be very difficult for me to, believe that they could make a case that would exempt them.
And it's no longer, and I just want to say too, Ed, that it would no longer be before the planning board, it would be before this board, who are all elected officials, who would have to answer to you at the end of the day.
They already submitted their letter, so it would be pointless to approve this.
They submitted their letter because they submitted that letter because we removed their exemption. They were exempted in the previous moratorium.
She should be at the podium.
Okay, but we're not,
We should be at the
thank-
podium. If we're gonna have back and
she made her
forth,
point.
Because these are good points, we addressed them earlier. She should be at the podium.
But she's
I forgive you.
not bringing her back to the podium. So, okay, thank you. All right.
I fought for this and I'm comfortable with it. That's all I can say.
If somebody makes, as Councilwoman McNamara said, if somebody requests an exemption, they have to come in front of this board in a public process,
And you would be part of that process.
okay? I don't believe there's going to be a request for that exemption. So, okay, so back to the board now. I'd like to close public portion, but I'm perfectly willing to leave the record open for written comments. It would, 1 week, 2 weeks, any 2 weeks?
Yeah, we could leave it open.
Leave it open
I'm sure
for
there's
2
others who
weeks.
may want to give us some.
I would
input.
like for those that
Either way,
made
I'm
the
fine.
written, those very detailed written comments to submit them to the clerk for.
I'm receiving them as I'm sitting.
Okay.
So, just, they're
Thank you.
still coming in.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, but leave the written record open for additional comments for 2 weeks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I give everybody a moment to exit quietly?
Thank you.
John Bouvier.
This is for all the groups that spoke in cereal. This is what
I'll distribute them to them right
that
now.
was. And then this was, you know, one I did, and is it appropriate? Sure. Perfect. Is it appropriate to leave the visuals that were?
Whatever you'd like to put in the file or to the record, you should leave with me. Because this hearing was just.
That's the guy that denied my endorsement.
Spoke
I
during
said I would put
the open.
That's the guy that denied my endorsement because I said I would put the health and safety of residents above meeting green energy goals.
Postcards about Bel Air.
That's the first time I've seen them.
Kim, are you familiar with some postcards that were received
All right, are
for
we
Bel Air?
ready to go to public hearing number 1?
Why do we?
They,
Why do we?
doesn't mean, nothing is filed in my office unless somebody actually brings it down.
We can get everybody to quiet down
Well, it
and
has
we
to
will
come to my office. If you send it
move
to the
along. We have
supervisor's
one
office,
additional public hearing. I'm sorry, Marion?
Town of Southampton is the town clerk. Yeah. But yeah, call me.
Oh.
Okay, Madam.
Hogan. Yeah.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the hearing notice for public hearing number 1?
Sunday?
Yes,
Read
I'm
public hearing
sorry.
number 1 notice, please.
Yes, trying to move on to the next hearing. All right. Public hearing number 1, to accept a trail easement in connection with Bidawee Inc., West Hampton.
Okay, and Deputy Town Attorney Christine Scalera will introduce this.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the board. For your consideration this afternoon is the acceptance of a trail easement in connection with a two-lot subdivision for Bidewee of the hamlet of West Hampton. The subdivision is designed to facilitate the town's purchase of open space.
Hold on one second, just close the doors, because it's...
So the subdivision was designed to facilitate the town's purchase of open space via the acquisition by the Community Preservation Fund. Specifically, parcel 1 is to contain approximately 34 acres and will contain the existing improvements associated with the existing animal shelter use, and parcel 2 is to contain approximately 111 acres and is to be acquired by the town's Community Preservation Fund for open space purposes. The trail easement is located on parcel 1. And you'll have to forgive me, I wasn't able to highlight it because the copier broke today. But, so this is lot 1 parcel. This is the trail easement. It's a 20-foot wide trail easement that runs the entire length of that boundary line and then leads into what will be acquired by CPF as open space.
We won't be able to hear you.
Oh, okay. So, the point is that it was designed so that it would give access to what will be the larger 111 acres to be purchased by CPF by virtue of a trail through there. So, and this was done, the planning board by resolution 169 of 2021 approved the subdivision subject to the applicant providing a trail easement for future trail purposes. And if the board is so inclined, there's a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the trail easement on the agenda later for today for your consideration.
So, is there any, I mean, is that the most logical place for the trail? It probably is.
This is the way they designed it, so I'm assuming that that is in fact the case. It looks like that's the cleanest piece that goes straight across.
Yeah, it was looked back by the Trails
without jogging.
Advisory Committee.
So,
Yeah,
I
and
think
it's
that the
contiguous to
applicant's on
the
the
entire
Zoom.
property, right, the additional.
Mm-hmm.
Is it- Are there other access on, like on the north side
Yes.
as well? Because there's, you know, that goes, there's some remediated areas north of that, so.
This leaves
How-
access to...
That leaves that, all right.
How wide is the trail easement?
20 feet. And I think it runs, I tried to add up, it's about 2,000 feet back.
And so would we have the right to cut the trail?
We're allowed to have whatever natural kind of foraging, that'll be in the trail easement. We'll get advice on what specifically they can do, but we will have access.
We can maintain the trail
Yes.
and, you know, 20-foot wide, it gives us the ability to get around trees and things like that.
Right, and take us back to really what's intended for the purpose of.
Where's North Phillips Road on that map? Is it off the map?
I don't know if it's on this map. I know that this is North Country Road.
Yeah.
For Christina,
Sunrise
we're not gonna
is
be able to
over
hear you
here.
again.
No, sorry,
The
well, I
microphone.
can't.
I can hear from there.
All right, so you
I
can
can
hear me?
hear from there.
All right.
Oh, you
Go back
can- you
over
can
there.
Yeah,
go
because
back to-
there's a
There's
speakers
that
here.
mic here.
Sunrise is over here, so I'm not really sure. You might know better where North Phillips is. I'm not
No,
positive.
it should be west of
North
there, I
Phillips
just wasn't
is,
sure how far.
yeah, North Phillips is quite a bit
Yeah.
west of that.
Yeah.
West and south.
It's not on here, so that's.
Okay, so, yeah, I was just hoping there might be an interconnection for that. There's some other trail systems up there on the west side of North Phillips. Okay, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
If it's that far, I thought it was closer.
That's it.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to hear from the applicant. I believe they're watching by Zoom.
It's up to them. The board, do you need to hear from the applicant? Okay. You want to bring them on? Is there anyone first in the audience who wishes to be heard on this? All right, Charles, there's one person online, I think.
Coming.
This is attorney, John.
This was
I think
PG
it's the,
Woodhouse's
Jean
old
Marie.
property originally.
Or John or
Yeah.
Tam, I don't know.
Yeah, it's John.
Oh, it's John, okay.
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you yet, so let's make sure. Sometimes it's at our end.
How about now?
There you
Yes.
go.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is John Ormantano. I'm an attorney with Farrell Fritz. I apologize for not being there personally, but I was able to watch the prior hearing, and I'm glad I wasn't. So I appreciate your time. Again, we've been working on this for several years. This is a great project. This is a dedication to the town. And this trail easement, I think, we've worked with our engineers in the town to place it in the most logical position. And to your question, if there's a need to clear trees, Bidewee is amenable to that for you to have a clear access path to the larger portions of the property.
Okay, thank you.
That's good.
Any questions? All right, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Walked a long way for that, but thank you.
Got that in.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this, online or in our audience here? All right, seeing none, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we gotta go to public portion next. I don't have any cards, I do see one hand, so, two hands, we'll start with Ms. Lombardi.
So, a couple of things. One, there's a saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And I seriously do not understand what it is that you don't understand about your process. Garbage in, garbage out. Garbage information in, garbage decisions out. I mean, I have wasted thousands of my time with this board, with land use, and I'm sure you wish I didn't, but I refuse to let Hampton Bays be the dumping ground for the town of Southampton, because there's members of this board, members of this administration, that consider it collateral damage for some greater good, whether it's the state, whether it's assisted living, whether it's, Kiolaville, Schneidermanville, and I don't understand how you don't see it. I really don't. So, you cannot expect, and it's not, when I say I don't trust Janice Shearer, it's not that I morally, ethically, I don't know the woman, to provide information that's objective. That's not what happens. It's proposals that are skewed. You did not get, in this particular fact pattern, you did not get objective information. You got skewed, half-assed information. And that's where we are today. How many hours of your time, my time, hundreds of people's time? It's ridiculous. And the fact that you don't see it, I don't get it. And it's not personal against Janice. It's about the process. You don't have the people in place to provide you the accurate and complete information. Michelangelo was the same thing. When Michelangelo was here talking about the pot shops, the person here had already met with him. He had already, his objective decisions were already skewed. He had already met with the developers. We had them in village business. You have best systems in village business. On what planet was that going to be okay? You had just approved the HBDOD 9 months earlier. And then 9 months later, the zoning for best systems? Like, it makes no sense. Do you realize how screwed up this is? And how much time we waste? I'm going to continue doing it because I love Hampton Bays. And that's it. I mean, I'm going to continue doing it. If I have to go back to court, I'll go back to court. I'll do whatever it takes because I love Hampton Bays. It's my home. You stole my peace. You stole my sense of security in this 8 years. You stole the sense that I'm not going to wake up one morning and there's going to be a bulldozer building a sewage treatment plant, building a best system, putting up 50 buildings, a road across my house. You stole that from me. And I wish there was like a theft of service code on the books that I could have some people arrested, because that's how passionate I am and how upset I am that you don't see the problem. And again, it's not about one person. It's about a process. So if you're not going to look at the details, as I said to Tommy John at the civic meeting, then I don't understand. And Tommy John coming with that pattern book that has been annulled was completely unacceptable in my view. I don't know who put you up to bringing that along and then going after me because I sued the town. I exercised my constitutional rights to sue this town. And as Jay was there and Janice was there when we met with Liz Hook, we don't sue because we want to. We sue because we're not being heard. We sue because we don't feel like you're treating us fairly. And so I'm not ending this mission. I love Hampton Bays. So either like kind of understand where I'm coming from, or this is just going to continue and all these people wasting time and all these hours, it's exhausting, but as you could tell, I'm a dog with a bone. I'm not giving up, and a lot of these people aren't giving up.
4 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, sir?
Just Supervisor, before we speak, I brought the pattern book to the Hampton Bay Civic Association. I like the designs in the pattern book. It exists. And I left it for them. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful design, and those are my opinions, and nobody put me up
A
to it.
lot of work went into this.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, in my
I
opinion.
think you did a good job. Sir?
Hi, Mark Haves, live in Southampton. I was at the Shinnecock Board, school board meeting last night, and I asked them about the number of new homes that have been built in the Tuckahoe school system. And no one could answer that question. So, and they said, come to the town meeting, and here I am. So I'm wondering why the taxes have not gone down dramatically, because we've added, I would think, over 100 homes in the Tuckahoe school system. And we have not added a whole bunch of additional children. And they've been trying to get the information, and they haven't been able to get it. So here I am trying to raise that point for the Tuckahoe school system, and maybe somebody on the board can help us. Thank you.
Yeah, you feel free to contact me independent of this, and we can look at that question, particularly at your property, and if you're, and most of your taxes are go to the school.
80% is schools, and I'm all for it. I want the schools to be the best schools it possibly can be.
And the construction in Tuckahoe that has come on the tax rolls, probably most of the new construction is not putting any kids in the school district. But I have to look at the tax rate there, and we have to adjust it for the dollar value too. See if your tax, you think your taxes have actually gone up in the last few years?
I'm not worried about my taxes. I'm worried about how the operation works. And, you know, it's at least 50 to 100 homes in the Tuckahoe school systems.
So you may actually have seen tax relief but aren't aware of it. That's what I want to take a look at.
It's not my house.
No, I'm not just you.
Yeah.
You know, obviously if somebody, I say your house, but another house, let's say they added a swimming pool or a garage or something like that, their taxes probably went up because their valuation went up. Your house and everyone else's is under an assessment freeze right now. We're not adjusting. We're not adjusting the values if you don't touch your house. We used to regularly adjust the value based on market conditions, and that is an area where property values have been going up. But for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been frozen. And
why,
sir?
I'm sorry, why?
The valuation, not the taxes, the valuation.
4 years of,
The
well,
assessment is frozen.
we put a freeze on market trend adjustments about 4 years ago because we were concerned that some areas were going up very quickly, and that there were people who are living on fixed incomes, particularly seniors, or maybe living on Social Security or pensions. And if they happen to be in one of these areas that might be going up by 20% a year,
good reason.
It could lead to property tax changes that would force them to have to leave the area. So we wanted to see if we could get a mechanism out of New York State that would allow us to phase in those changes. We were not successful in getting that mechanism. And the board will once again have to decide if it wants to go back to the old system or live with the current system, which basically adjusts your assessment. If you look at your assessment on your tax bill, there's something called an equalization rate, but it's a town-wide rate. So right now, it's about 69%. What we have assessed is about 69% of full value. So what we believe the value of your property is, 31% higher than that. And,
But my question is about the number of homes that have been built just in the Tuckahoe school system. And that, to me, would mean that there should have been a lot more on the rolls.
Well, we're also working on a program to get some CPF pilot programs. Some communities enjoy a benefit from the CPF program where property's taken off the tax rolls.
Yeah, they mentioned that to me.
Or we're able to use some CPF dollars to replace that lost tax revenue. that's something we are looking at potentially for Tuckahoe, which could help. But I would like to actually go through this exercise, if you'd like, with you, because your actual property taxes may be lower, adjusted for the value of the dollar, because we've been in a pretty high inflationary environment. You may be paying, as much
I'm
as
not worried about me.
10% less. No, but
He's asking
the
in
premise
general.
of your question was why, with all this construction, aren't property taxes going down? And they may actually be. So I'd like to look at the
But there's
actual-
also a lag in some
Right.
of those new construction homes haven't
Exactly.
hit yet.
Exactly.
And sir, I'd like to direct you to a document that we have on our town website. It's called the tax rate sheet. And it's put on yearly, and on that sheet, it shows every single district in the town, school, fire, library, everything. Great piece of information. And on this sheet, it has the accumulated tax assessment for the Tuckahoe School District and all school districts. You can get one from this year and the previous year. New homes and new construction do add to the tax base of a particular school district. That's someplace that you can start when you meet with the supervisor. It's called the tax rate sheet.
Thank you.
Google it, you're gonna
Yeah,
get.
a number of people have come
bunch
to
of
me with the
documents.
same question, why are my taxes going up? And I said, let's look over the last 7 years or so.
They really haven't gone up, per
In
se.
most cases, they've actually
Yeah.
gone down, particularly if you adjust for the dollar. So-
But I believe in Tuckahoe in general, what they're referring to is there is a large, there's the good amount of large-scale homes being built or have just been built. They haven't hit the tax roll yet.
Full
Yeah,
assessment.
the
How
other
long- How
thing-
long does it take?
It generally can take from the time that
They get their
the
CO.
building is issued its CO, and then there's a little bit of a lag time depending on when the CO was issued. There's a tax cutoff date on March 1st. So if you get your CO after that year, you can take almost like another year and a half before it gets fully assessed. And then the school district will get the revenue once it's fully
I want the
assessed. So
schools to
that's
get the revenue.
Yeah,
And-
so
and
that's
when they
the-
do-
But the schools won't get what it'll do, it'll lower everybody's taxes because your tax base goes up. The school's still gonna spend the same dollars.
I want to.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Okay.
they're gonna collect the same amount of money, but it'll be a portion slightly different, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, and remember too, that this board controls only that one portion of your tax bill, the town, the police, those types of things.
But 80% is the school.
75 to, 80%. And there's the library, there's fire departments, there's
All
lots of
good
things.
stuff.
Tax
All
rate
good stuff.
sheet.
Yeah, all right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Study it.
All right, Mr. D'Angelo,
The answers are there.
he's got his composition notebook, I used to have those.
I take an online course of theoretical physics from Stanford, and I also take a course in differential equations from Stanford. This is my notebook,
Yeah.
because I can't sleep at night. I just thought I'd make some conciliatory comments, and here's
Please
the problem.
identify yourself for the record. Just so
Ray
they touch the
D'Angelo
mic.
of Hampton
I know who
Bays.
you are, but the public may not.
Okay, no, I'm not, I did it.
And Ray, we might not be able to hear you when you go over there.
I just want to point, so if you- right here is the canal, and this is where the best system would
Do you
be.
mind if I just say on the record so people can hear, Mr. D'Angelo is pointing to the Shinnecock Canal and the approximate location of
Okay.
the canal
And
best
here's the
facility.
point. Anybody with common sense and in a truthful, if they want to be truthful about the situation, would say, well, that's a bottleneck there, and it is. You can see that. And there's residential communities around it. And that's what I think one of the problems, and I was trying to say that how we kind of a negative declaration with this thing is really a problem, because it snowballed into the planning board. And I spoke in front of the planning board by Zoom probably last June. And when I spoke, I could see that they had no idea what they were dealing with, because I started talking to them about the incident in Phoenix, and the board members were turning to the canal people were there, and they said, is that true? And yeah, he said, yeah, they had a very bad situation, 2 people died. And that's what I think I'm saying, is how do we get to this thing? I mean, it kind of is not fair to you guys that you rely on these people to give you advice, and you went with it. And this thing is not a simple thing that it's not going to cause a problem. It's a very serious thing, and these people are afraid for their safety. This is not like a CVS that, we don't want the CVS. People complain about everything, and I know that. But this is, like, they're concerned about their safety, and legitimately so, because again, there's a real possibility that this thing could go bump in the night. You know, there's a probability and possibility. So, I mean, and I follow all this stuff, and, you know, that's what I think I want you guys to be aware of, that this is the emotion that you're dealing with. This is not like a CVS they don't want. They're afraid for their safety and their property values, but I think number one, their safety. And I hope that that's helpful to you guys in your evaluation. I mean, when I made that comment about Janice, I don't want to make, I should have made it personal. I apologize for that. I didn't want to personalize it. I shouldn't have. I should have just said, the planning board to come up with that determination is beyond, I can't understand it. It's beyond the pale. It's just not, doesn't make any sense to me. So that's one little comment I want to make. The other thing I want to comment about is that the senior center at Hampton Bays, the parking, and I guess it's great for Hampton Bays because it's very crowded. There is no parking at noon. And we have a lot of patrons of it that can't get parking. Almost all of them, almost all the, especially, and not sexist, but the women outlive the men, so we have more older women than men. And they're working with walkers through the parking lot, and a lot of them don't come because they can't get parking, and we still not have, I guess, a solution to this. And I really wish that you guys would get together and come up with something, because especially now during the summer, there is no parking. And a lot of these people, they come, they get a nutritious meal, and a lot of them are housebound. They can come in, they can be with their friends, play bingo and everything. It's very important to them. So I don't know what you could do, but maybe from like 10 to 2, you could have like senior parking or something. Something could be done. It has to be done. And it's a wonderful program, and I thank you all for supporting it. And it's I don't know, there's got to be a solution, because part of the problem is that, you know, now we have town cars are parked there. That's got somewhat better. You have the fire marshal, the animal control, and the code enforcement there, and their cars are parked all over the place. But also, Hampton Bays is doing very well this summer. The parking lot, King Cullen is packed, the stores are packed, our restaurants are packed, and so we don't have enough parking. So I really think something has to be done with these spots are reserved, not all day, but for at least maybe from 11 to 1. That's
30
when
seconds.
people come for lunch. So if you guys could look into that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Jim, is there an issue there, or, you know, I just want to ask our legal counsel, because, I mean, that makes perfect sense what you're saying,
Yeah.
Ray, is that we block out certain parking spaces for our use only, but I think that there's an agreement that the
Shared
parking
one.
area is open to the
Yeah,
general
we
public.
can work with the owner of the rest of the center to see, because right now, the parking is not, we don't have a specific areas that we park. We do own the property, but it's a shared agreement on the parking.
It's
We
a
can-
shared parking.
We can look to see if we can get with them. I don't think they'd have a real objection,
Well,
especially if we can get some.
particularly beaches this summer, really. I mean, it's this.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I can walk, I park on the other side, but,
Right.
you know, we have a lot
Would
of,
it,
We might be able to get something where we can have, like Ray is saying, maybe from 11 to 1, the spots closest to the building.
Right.
We can work with Ryan to make sure that
I've
our
been- I've been
employees don't
working
park
with- I've been
there.
working with
Yeah.
Ryan on this, and we've been looking at several things, and we were talking to the director there, and she thinks a big part of the issue is actually cars being left there overnight, and they switch out, like they come and they drop off cars, and then they
Well, there is-
get in their
there
work
is.
vehicle, and they leave their personal vehicle behind. So we had thought to start with, no overnight parking, you'll be towed if you leave your
well,
car
maybe that
overnight.
would be good too. I mean,
Right.
that is true, because I see the same cars, you know, the same vans.
Yep.
You know, and they must.
And then
be
they get in the van, they leave their car,
they
and then
leave
they
their
switch
car.
out.
Ray,
And-
do most of the cars have handicap parking tags?
A lot of them do, but there's only 6 or 5 handicap spots.
So that might be an answer too, by
We could
increasing
increase-
the number of handicap parking
Yeah.
spaces. We're still open to the public, but we've reserved more for handicap folks that may provide additional parking spaces for those individuals who
Maybe
really
we
need it.
could put an hourly on that, I don't know, if we could put an
Well,
hourly.
this summer's been particularly egregious with the parking. It's terrible. And I know people that don't go because they can't, you know, they can't park. I mean, we have the bus, the scat bus comes, and the people get out, and then
Right.
that's good, but,
That's fine.
I mean, you know, it's very upsetting to watch, you know, them walking through the
we
park
could
with their
look at it.
Why don't
walkers.
we look at
Ryan and
both
I,
of those?
but Ryan and I wanted to restripe the center section of Rose in a different color and have that by permit, and then they could get a
permit from the senior center
Yeah.
that they could park in those spots.
I don't know if you need to.
During certain hours?
Yeah, I don't know if we can make
But
it
they wouldn't let us do that.
specific to the senior center, but if we doubled or tripled the number of handicap spaces, and we did what you said with the overnight, no overnight
Yeah, but
parking,
would
that
that
might
impact
be.
the businesses there, that there'd be no parking, there's a
Yeah.
Rite Aid there, I mean, I don't wanna,
We're gonna start with the overnight, I think,
yeah, I
and see
think,
where
I
that goes.
think, I like her idea, the overnight, no overnight parking, you know, from whatever, like 11 to, because these guys, and then they can be ticketed, because you come in the morning, in the morning, and people come there at 7:30 in the morning, because this is their whole life, really, you gotta understand this. And they're already, there's, a lot of, maybe a third or 2/3 of the parking spots are taken already,
All right, thank you, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
Everything we've tried over there is just exasperated because Liggett's is no longer there. People now go to Rite Aid more. It's very hard to even find a place for Rite Aid. We have a new physical therapy place there with 15 to 20 people every hour, half hour, coming and going. It's really just kind of built up on us.
And we're parking more of our vehicles in the garage section.
Yeah.
I see them there.
Some of those tenants are getting charged for those spaces too, that they need to provide.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still in public portion, is anybody else wishing to be heard?
Yes.
Anybody online, Charles, for public portion?
No, sir.
All right, I'll make a motion to close public portion,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. To our resolutions. We're gonna start with Resolution 949 of 2023, co-sponsored with the Councilwoman McNamara, accepts the grant of conservation easement in connection with the Lewis Road PRD. Janice, can I ask you to step forward on this one?
And the next one too, right?
Yeah, so on this one, there is an issue still, right?
This is the grant of the conservation easements.
Right.
So there was, and thank you, I just want to thank you for everything from earlier.
You deserve that and more.
Appreciate it. So the question was, are we double checking, triple checking? Someone brought up the idea that we may not have had everyone look at everything regarding these easements, and I just want you to know that we've got our CPF also experts, Attorney Dan McCormick and Jackie Fenlon, who was previously principal planner here, also making sure that the descriptions and described properties are all accurate. And then what has to happen is, and we'll put them through, typically you can go just transfer the rights onto the map, but we're actually going to put them through our development rights certificate process so that in addition, we'll have that. So each one of these properties from the old file map, Parlato, and there's described properties, and they're being transferred from one location outside of the open space to another. We'll be doing that through our development rights certificate process. So, and that's another
Extra step.
extra scrutiny where we provide certificates. So you have a parcel, say it's in an old file map, you trade it in for a certificate, you've seen these before, Dave comes to you, we usually have another hearing about it, and then we can transfer them. So we'll, just as an added step,
How does that work?
be doing that.
So I know that there's those documents that Dave prepares. The development rights, though, in this case, are being extinguished? or-
Yes, and that's the open space easements you're accepting.
So they're cashing those?
Yes.
So they're
Cashing
basically
them
not
in.
being
So
given
we
out,
have
they're just
develop-
kind of.
Yeah, so
It's
we
an internal
issued
TR.
development right allocation letters in this whole process. Dave looked through them, wrote development right allocation letters. We didn't turn them into certificates that get redeemed. It's sort of an added
So
step.
there's no other public hearing, it's just,
Typically, those do have hearings, so we're saying we can add this step so that we are
Well,
1,000%
as-
satisfied that these rights originated, they were granted certificates, and then they were extinguished. So we'll be just doing
Yeah,
that
and
as an
and I
added
appreciate that,
process.
Janice, because when I started to look through it, there's so many small parcels there. And I was worried that we would be burdening properties that we didn't have the right to burden. And I think this process is a good one. allows us to identify that and make it tighter. I'm probably not using the right words, but that was my concern about this to begin with.
Right, you want to ensure that those described properties are belonging to the applicant and making sure that they're
So it
captured
helps us
and
both.
get an allocation, and then they're redeemed onto the subdivision map. So it's just an added procedural step. We thought about it
Is there a
yesterday.
hearing attached to it, or no? It's
There
a resolution.
usually is, but it could be just a resolution. I mean, it's not really
It was my
in
understanding that
the code.
because it was just being done internally, that ability to sign those would just be added onto these resolutions that we have.
We can do that. That's just
Typically, is it a
same.
resolution authorizing me to accept those development rights certificates?
And that's what my understanding was, these would be reworded to allow you to sign those.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
fine.
because it
Well, the
helps
point
both
is
the
that right
town
now
and
we
the-
have deeded
Yeah. It
helps
properties
both
and
the town and the
descriptions,
applicant,
and we
that's
can
important.
allocate certificates that get redeemed. We were doing it in one step. It's
Yeah.
kind of procedurally don't need it, but
I
we'll
just
do
put
it.
it off for another month.
So this
This
is
just allows us to-
ministerial,
Yeah.
or it's
Yeah.
another ministerial,
Or
because we
it's-
were told that these resolutions were ministerial and, nothing to see here.
So we can just table
So
these
you
to the
want
next
us to
meeting?
table,
There's
and
a lot
we're gonna
to
later
see.
amend
That's
those.
the problem.
We're gonna
I
amend
think
them
the
to talk
question is
about
whether
those
or not
development
we're
rights
gonna hear it.
certificates,
So we'll
to
just
give
table
you
till
the
the
right
next
to
So you're
sign
gonna
them,
have some
so that we
also
can.
resolve clause and to allow the town to accept the certificates, whatever.
Yes.
Well, but I'd like the opportunity to look at that again, that's. the
Well, what's
point
gonna
of a
happen is
public
that we
hearing.
have the map being reviewed and all the easements being reviewed and scrutinized against the map.
Yeah,
the
because I
old
don't know if
file map.
anybody here has looked at it, but it's a lot of, there are a lot
Well,
of
we
parcels.
have, I
on
mean,
it.
as
You've
much
looked at
as
it.
Here on the board.
Anthony Trez has looked at it.
Anthony and
Our legal department's leaving, and now CPF is looking at it.
Well, now CPF is
Dave
looking
Wilcox
at
has
it.
looked at it. It's
well,
been
he's
scrutinized.
looking at it through the lens of issuing certificates, which is a real,
In lieu of an expensive.
in
big
lieu of
survey.
getting like a surveyor or
Right.
somebody else, we do have
It's
in-house
being
experts. Despite
scrutinized.
what people say, we have experts that know what they're doing, and we can do this without too much
And
issue.
this benefits both the town and the applicant, because going into the future, there's a property that shows up that wasn't captured properly in this process. There's lots of little parcels, it could end up in litigation. So I think both the applicant and the town, it makes sense to do this.
I think to that point, it would be worthwhile to have a public hearing just for
No, it
exactly
wouldn't.
what you said.
It really wouldn't.
So that the public and the world can take a look at what we're doing and what the applicant's doing, so it's all good when the hearing is closed.
We're just gonna follow the normal procedure for the development rights certificates. I think that's the best way to go about it.
Which requires a public hearing.
You
No, it
could
doesn't.
or could not, so.
It doesn't have to, and all it does is rehash everything that we've already discussed.
Well,
It
we
is at your
haven't
pleasure.
discussed this, so, and not saying that we are, or we will,
We
but I think it's
do
prudent
have,
to
well,
do
did you
this.
close that hearing? It's closed?
Well, we left the written record open for 2 weeks for all of the people that wanted to be heard and wanted to weigh in, and we've gotten zero input, so.
Well, I was more concerned for the edification of the board to have looked at that.
It
because
is
could put the
procedurally
town in
correct to
jeopardy.
do the development right process, because that's how we do it that's how we've been doing it. So we'll just, I think the best
We have
bet is to
public
do it
hearings
that
on the
way.
little pieces from Mr. Gaza, and
Yeah, that's the same way, and then we
And
accept the
this is a-
easements, and
this is
they
extensive,
issue
I mean.
development, when you issue a development rights certificate, you put the property in open space, right? You are extinguishing
You're-
that right, it goes onto paper, the right, that area that it came from gets preserved, and then you take that right and you transfer it someplace. In this case, it's being transferred as a density incentive onto the map that everybody has reviewed already in the planning realm. So that's all set, it's just a matter of doing it through this certificate process to give you the added confidence that it's been vetted.
there's no difference in the density at all.
No,
There's no-
same.
I would just, can we table this till the next meeting and get
Yeah.
legal
Yeah, yeah.
opinion on what we need to do?
Right. We're just tabling it now anyway, right?
We are gonna table it, but I'm just wondering if we should know, if technically we're supposed to have a public hearing on the development rights certificates, then maybe we could walk on a resolution to schedule a public hearing for the 22nd.
You could do that, that would be great.
So Jim, you'd have to have somebody write it pretty quick. So,
I'm not even 100% familiar
and
with
is that-
exactly what's
Do we have
happening.
enough notice Sunday if we pass the resolution to notice a public hearing on the 22nd? Is that enough time?
I'm just considering this now, so, no.
No.
Well, why
So
not
it's
go
another
through the
month.
regular process? That's,
It's not gonna be in the newspaper until next Thursday.
let's,
So it would have to be
Well,
then. at a
let's-
later
Can we
date.
can we table it and for
It's
further discussion, and
important. Yeah,
we'll
we
decide
can,
what we need to do
we've-
here, because I'm not even.
It's not a matter, I think that it's important that we just follow that
We just want to make sure we're doing it by the book. that's all.
process, yeah, and.
Because some of these properties aren't even identified, and that's important to make sure that this is done right, because my concern was that a future board is just going to be straddled with a whole bunch of issues that come up with, because we're not doing that now as I think we should. Especially after I looked at the easement is fine, but at the details of the easement and some of the meets and bounds, tiny property, I just thought it's a lot to understand.
Usually all that happens sort
It's
of
an
behind
opportunity.
the,
Yeah,
scenes where
normally
we
does.
review all that.
This kinda
And then
came on
when
us.
you have a resolution in
This
front
has
of
been on
you,
us for 4 weeks.
you can be assured that it is correct. In this case, it is a good thing to make sure that we do the transfer of those rights off our map and off the described property to the subdivision map as we do it every single other time.
Well, the
And that's
resolution
my
that's written
recommendation.
does say the supervisor is authorized to execute any and all documents in furtherance of said acceptance. You could argue that those certificates are part of that.
Let's just table it and we'll get legal advice on it and we can go from there.
We
We
did
can't
get
do anything
legal
today
advice
anyway.
on it, but
All right,
that's fine.
so I haven't actually made a motion to approve, so I'll make the motion to table 949 of 23 until, I guess, August 22nd is the next week.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, move on to the second one. Might as well stay there, Janice, at 9:50 of 2023. Councilman McNamara is the lead sponsor on this one.
Accept deeds of dedication in connection with the Lewis Road PRD. Motion to table it till August 22nd.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I've scheduled Martin Petrovic, who does our groundwater management, to come to work session this week on the 10th.
Looking
So you
forward to it.
can discuss the IT at HMP.
Before, Tommy John, you read the next one, is there anything else you're sticking around for that you want me to take out of order?
I don't think so. It was just this.
Just those two? All right. And Jessica, is there anything else you're sticking around for that you want us to take out of order?
No.
Sir, and you're good to go. Okay.
He just figured he's been in it this long.
Just hanging out. Oh, thank you, that is nice.
Very, very polite.
There's
Thank
no ribbon at the end.
And Janice, for the record, you have my full faith and confidence in
Thank you.
running our planning department. I know we all can do it, but
We just
Appreciate
need
it.
help.
fantastic job.
Thanks.
And I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You know, people think they're my greatest enemy, but truly they're my greatest teachers. So,
Well, it's a nice way to say it.
There you go.
That's
Thank
sort of
you.
like the
Over the
seed
last,
thing, when they
uh,
thought they'd bury you, but you're really a seed, you go.
yeah.
Over the last 8 years of watching you go from associate to the director, I've watched you do some amazing things, and I'm very honored to work with you.
Thank you,
quite
John.
honestly.
Likewise to all of you.
Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate it.
I know that we're all here because we believe in community, we believe in the environment, we want to do the right thing. And sometimes in that process, you may make enemies, you may have people not understand your intention, and sometimes maybe you make mistakes along the way, and that's human. And, we live and we learn, and we bring the new facts in and we make more informed decisions. But the intention is always, for the community. and-
Absolutely. That's why you have a legislative intent, honestly. That's why we write them so carefully all the time. People should read them because they're pretty good.
You're working hard trying to achieve things, right?
We can't stop life from happening. So we're just trying to accommodate things as they come forward. That's all.
Well, good things aren't always easy, they're usually hard, so thank you for everything.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
Have a good one.
Moving on.
Yes.
Town Board Resolution 955 of 2023 to authorize payment to SourcePass Contemporary LLC for network security installation and configuration components.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 956 of 2023 to authorize purchase of technology catalog solutions from SHI International using Sourcewell contract.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 957 of 2023, authorize supervisor to sign a contract with Montauk Bus Charter.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 958 of 23, resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a settlement agreement with Altice.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 959 of 2023, authorize supervisor to sign an agreement with the Shinnecock Indian Nation for food catering through the Division of Senior Services.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 960 of 2023, authorize the purchase and installation of vehicle warning lights, light bars, sirens, consoles, and accessories from East Coast Emergency Lighting, Inc., using Rockland County contract.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 961 of 2023, authorize the supervisor to execute a 2023 stop DWI grant agreement with Suffolk County.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 962 of 2023, authorize the supervisor to execute a lease agreement with Quadient for IX5AF mail machine system for Youth Bureau.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 963, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, authorize the supervisor to execute a license agreement for Hampton Classic Horse Show from August 11th, 2023 through September 7th, 2023, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at 240 Snake Hollow Road, Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay, I need to make a motion to amend 964 of 2023. Some of the numbers are wrong in the eighth whereas clause where it says 25,553. It should say 26,873. In the first resolved, where it says 30,000, it should say 31,000. And we're in the second further resolved, where it says 30,000, again, it should say 31,000. And in the financial impact, instead of 30,000, it should say 31,000. Sunday, have you been provided with those changes?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Thank you. Now I
You're
have.
being provided with those changes, so I will make a motion to amend as I just described.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
And now, that was amended, now I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Same second.
Same second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved as amended. I don't think I read it, though. It's authorized the supervisor to execute an agreement with Premier Mechanical Services for boiler repairs and replacement at the David W. Crowan Flanders Community Center is the title, and that was approved as amended. All right, we're gonna move on to, just wanna see if there's any co-sponsors on that. No, okay. And then we're moving on to the next one, which is 965 of 2023. This one is co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone. Authorize the supervisor to sign a subscription agreement with Power DMS Inc. for Planet Police for the time and attendance at the town's police department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 966 of 23, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, authorize the supervisor to sign contract with EV Connect for charging station management system at Ponquag Beach. I still have a question on this one, so I'm going
Seconded by
to
Councilman Bouvier on the
I'm
motion.
going to table it.
Oh, you want to, you're.
I'm going to table it till next
Yeah,
week. Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Because there's
To
a
the next
corrosion
meeting?
issue with the, so we're not sure if they're actually exchanging them or replacing them. Not quite sure. That's your question?
I spoke to Kristen about it. They're currently not replacing them. This is extension to the software for a year. But they are losing a lot of money, and I don't know. I want to talk to Tom and find out if there's any grants to offset this, because it's losing the town money as it runs. So I don't know that we want to continue
Do we have a
with
high
this.
utility bill for it?
Yes. Yes, I mean, I got
Well, it depends on what they're actually charging the plug-in customer.
$3.33 an hour.
Yeah, so,
And they take 15% of that. And since they were installed with the 4-year software subscription was $7,560. They have, to date, from 2019, we've netted $2,329 less the electricity costs.
well, I think that was kind of expected. We should talk to in planning. Michael Lieberman.
That's why I just want to get clarification
Yeah,
on.
Michael Lieberman had originally set that up, and I think there was a change in the rate to get money to the beach charging stations like we have at Tiana too.
So I just want some more clarification.
How many
That's fine.
charges were, since you have the numbers there, how many charges how many cars were charged?
It was used for 48 days. There were 87 charges so far this year.
So the money that we're getting doesn't
48
reimburse us for the cost of the electricity
net
used?
negative.
Which is fair enough, but I think if you look at the equipment, you'd almost be afraid to plug it in
Yeah,
at this point. So
it's pretty.
if they're not gonna change it out, it's
And they
useless.
there's other questions. I mean, they painted it, it's rusting through again. They have, the new ones that they're putting in are a different software company. So Kristen had asked about putting them all in the same software company and having Tom oversee all of them. So Parks isn't overseeing some of these charging stations, which
Yeah,
Tom has agreed to, but
There's
there's
also,
more
I think, an
questions.
issue with the type of plug-in, that going to the more universal, because some cars can't plug into it, and I think that's also.
And that's important too, that it's universal, but
So,
also,
we just have some questions.
we never made a decision that we would charge less for it and subsidize the electricity.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever the plan. I think that's how it worked out, because it's very hard to measure what actually goes
You
into.
know, we're providing a
yeah.
convenience for people. Now, we shouldn't be losing money. If we break even, we could argue
No, we're
that
losing
we're
money.
doing our part.
No, it's definitely worth looking at, so I'm fine with that.
All right, so it's a motion now, we're going to withdraw the motion to approve, it's a motion to table by.
To the next meeting?
Yeah.
Say the 20,
Thank
what,
you.
second, is it?
Thank you.
All right, so the
What is
motion.
it, 22nd?
Motion to table by Councilman Martell, second by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
So tabled. Moving on to 967 of 2023. Co-sponsored by Councilman Schiavone, award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for printing of forms for fire prevention with Concept Print.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 968 of 2023 to declare items surplus and authorize disposal of computer equipment.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Who's the
approved.
second?
John?
I'm sorry.
I was the second.
Thank you.
969 of 23, no co-sponsors. Recall and amend Resolution 2022-525, authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with H2M Architects and Engineers for the Lobster Inn Park Capital Project Design.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 970 of 2023, recall and amend Resolution 2023-200, authorize the supervisor to execute a 2023 Youth Bureau agreements with Youth Bureau Programming Consultants.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2023-971 is a 2023 notice to bidders for 2022 Ford F-250 Super Duty.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 972 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara, is a 2023 notice to bidders for a heavy haul tractor.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 973 of 2023 notice to bidders for Tesla electric vehicles. Did anybody check on this one?
We did.
I sent an email.
Jenna sent it. It was basically because
They
they
had-
have a grant and they're having a hard time getting Chevys. So Tesla is another American brand that they're able to get a base model for the cost of what the grant is for.
Okay, so everybody's okay with it?
Yep.
Yeah, the only question that I have about it is that Tesla uses a
Different
charger, a different kind of charger, so.
So that means more wires coming out of the back of our building?
Yeah, maybe.
You okay with that, Sunday?
No, I think it should be okay.
I already
but
have
this is
one
their
parked
base
behind me
model,
that I
so
try
they're
not to
using
hit every
standard.
day.
But they're front charging.
Okay, so this, was there a second on this?
Yes.
Second by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I pay attention, Janice.
All right, 97423, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, accepts donation for Southampton Town Police Department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. This is a generous gift, $5,000 from the Robbins Island Foundation for our police. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 975 of 23 amends the 2023 adopted budget for animal control part-time salaries.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 976 of 23 amends the 23 adopted budget for Citizens Response Center computer purchases.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 977 of 23, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, authorize the 2023 contributions to Volunteer Ambulance Worker Trust Fund.
I'll second it. This is the LoSAP program. It doesn't say.
Yes, this is, yeah, normally they're phrased differently, but,
Mm-hmm.
all right, so it's seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 978 of 2023, resolution of adoption enacting Chapter 74, Animal Welfare Reserve Account of the Code of the Town of Southampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? I'm sorry, I raced right through that. Everybody's okay with this? All right, all in favor? Aye, it's approved.
Town Board Resolution 979 of 2023, resolution of adoption amending Chapter 150, Dogs and Other Animals, to update definitions, fines, and to add animal welfare surcharge.
Same second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Page 46.
Page 44. Town Board Resolution 980 of 2023, resolution of adoption enacting Chapter 8-6.4 to allow for appropriation of justice court fees to the Animal Welfare Reserve Account.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 981 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, authorized waiver of Parks and Recreation Facilities use fee for the Peconic Invitational Cross Country Race.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 982 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, attendance at 2023 DCJS Public Safety Symposium.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 983 of 23 appoints Christian Peterson to Senior Environmental Analyst position in Land Management.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved, and congratulations. 984 of 2023 appoints Melissa Rankin to Ordinance Inspector position.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved, and congratulations to Melissa.
Town Board Resolution 985 of 2023 to authorize attendance at the New York State Assessors Association Fall Conference in Saratoga Springs, New York.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 986 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is a notice of public hearing to consider the wastewater treatment projects proposed for 2023 Community Preservation Fund, CPF, 20% water quality improvement plan funding.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scavone. On it, though, this is a notice of public hearing for something on August 22nd. Is that enough time? We said earlier that it may
Well,
not be.
these can be fairly long.
But they're not legal laws.
These are, yeah, I'm not
It
sure I
has to do
understand your
with,
question.
well, it has- if we're noticing a public hearing, it has to go to the newspaper and
Oh, I
has to
see
be
what
there
you're
for a
saying.
minimum. The hearing may be too soon, August 22nd. this came up before when I said, can we walk on something to notice a public hearing on the development rights certificates for August 22nd?
I don't have that.
Jim,
Janice,
you know,
is
does anybody know?
that, are we still the same problem?
This is
Yeah.
Maybe it's different.
14 days.
It's not a local law.
That you need for 10 day written notice.
Right. Okay.
I think this is correct.
You think it's okay? All right, I made a motion, there was a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 987 of 2023, accept a trail easement in connection with By the Way, Inc., West Hampton, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier.
Second.
Just Councilman Bouvier?
Oh, and
And-
Supervisor
oh,
Schneiderman.
and-
Your
yeah.
name usually isn't
I know,
second
yeah.
billing.
I know. That's okay, I'm looking at, I guess I'm a co-sponsor of it. All right, so there's a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. I was just feeling left out for a second. All right, we're going to the walk-ons.
How did we do in the race on Saturday?
Got somebody texting me wanting to know if that was
Although I
just
thought they
adopted.
brought in a ringer because that girl looks really fit.
Oh, yeah.
And then you saw
Really?
James Dreven
Oh, he
standing there.
coached her. He helped them with
He
the
really
boat
wanted you to
design.
lose.
He taught her how to get the
Timing's
most
everything.
power out of every stroke. And
I saw
was
the
like,
coverage on News 12. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I did not win the cardboard board race. No, my record is still pretty good. I think 1 tie, 4 wins, and 1 loss, so not so bad.
You
Not-
gotta
not-
give
I
you
just
luck.
want to say, I
Not
think
too
you had a
shabby.
pretty good
Yeah,
boat
give you
design.
better.
Yes, well, John helped, advise on the boat design,
But
but
the weight
I
balances
I
on that.
do think now that Riverhead has a really kind of fast boat, that we're gonna have to potentially retire the old boat. And we may need a bigger boat.
I've been keeping a
Who
list.
said that, John?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I got a list of improvements.
Roy Scheider, right, Roy Scheider.
bigger
That was an
boat.
improv
That
line.
was an
Right,
improv
right.
It was an improv line, we need a bigger
a joke
boat.
on
Well,
set.
we might need a better,
He went with it.
we might need a different boat. So, but I'm happy to donate the boat to the town of Southampton. All
Now it's
right.
a loser, so.
So, yeah, now it's well, it won quite a few. Devin's pretty tough, though. Yeah, so the supervisor herself did not compete, nor, Devin, I've raced against Devin in the past. Last time she was also in, but Yvette unfortunately had a health issue. She wasn't able to compete, so she had one of her deputies, Devin, compete. All right, so 4-3, it was a lot of
One of our
fun.
young
We could talk
lifeguards.
about it at the work session. It was a really nice day, so I had a lot of fun. And it's al-
Our engineer man.
winning
Miss
is,
those good
winning,
times.
I'll tell you, winning is sort of bittersweet anyway when you win,
And there's-
because they're
everybody's
all,
booing you.
everybody there is rooting for Riverhead.
Right.
So you're like the bad guy as you walk off like you won, but yeah, everybody, the entire crowd is disappointed because our side of the river, there are no people,
Yeah.
and it's just woods. So it's all Riverhead.
You go right up to
people.
the finish
We're
line, then
trying
you
to
let them
change that.
pass you
It's
at the
hard to
end.
get over there,
Yeah,
too.
we have
on
to,
the
we
other
have to
side.
build those trails on the other side, so we can have some people watching and cheering from the Southampton side. All right. Enough of that. Let's move on to the walk-on. So 43978, consent to proceed with application for additional antennas of new singular at 340 Great Hill Road in North Sea.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 43989, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier and Councilwoman McNamara, authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Premier Mechanical Services to replace AC unit and furnace at Waste Management Facility Office located at 1370 Majors Path in Southampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 43991 is our 15th warrant. It's also capital and CPF and payroll liability.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. And 43992 is a notice of public hearing regarding the lease of town land for the purpose of design, construction, and management of wireless communication structure. Which one is this?
It's the North Sea.
All right, this is at the North Sea Transfer Station.
Is it-
Okay, and this would be a hearing on September 12th. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. And that's the last resolution. Is there any other business? Hearing none, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.